Good evening, everyone. Albert Einstein said once, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be the successful one. Once again, good evening to everyone. On behalf of TiE Mysuru, I take this privilege in warm welcoming our delegates to TiECon Mysuru 2021. I'm Dr. Lokesh, Associate Professor from the Devaka College of Engineering, Mysuru, and Associate Member at TiE Mysuru will be the Master of Ceremony. To welcome is to show honor. To welcome is to establish integrity. I invite Mr. Ajit Pai, President, TiE Mysuru, to deliver the welcome address. Over to Mr. Ajit Pai.
Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. And that line to me sums up TiECon 2021. Speakers from around the globe who have joined us to support TiE Mysuru and the ecosystem we're building. We have a diverse set of participants for this third edition of TiECon, a fantastic set of speakers and panelists from India, Singapore, Dubai, and different time zones in the US. In addition, we have delegates from in and around Mysuru, EDs and members of other TiE chapters from India, and of course, the enthusiastic members from our own chapter. A very warm welcome to you all. TiE Mysuru, since its inception 3 years ago, is an integral part of the ecosystem in our city. We have signed MOUs and worked closely with the government, built partnerships with educational institutes, provided value to local entrepreneurs, and opportunities to aspiring founders. When it came to TiECon, we had to build further on all we had done this past year, and at the same time be relevant to our core audience here. It had to be different from the past editions. So rather than large sectoral themes or newest industry trends, we decided to bring it home to a city we all love. Call it the retirement capital or perennially a potential partner to Bengaluru. One thing is clear, Mysuru grows on you, and there aren't too many people on the right side of 30 who wouldn't want to call it their home, or at least a second home. So why not reach out to anyone and everyone who's been touched by the city at any time in their life and get them to share their story? Well, not only touched by Mysuru, but its surrounding regions or its people. A number of our CMs reached out to their personal contacts too. And as we dug around, we realized that it's quite a vast net that we have cast. And there are so many people out there that we could bring together on a platform to savor their life stories and experiences. Thus was born the theme of this year's event, TiECon.local. It's an astonishing blend of youth. We have a panelist who's probably just crossed the legal drinking age in most parts of the world, and experience. Suffice to say that we have speakers older than I am. Of established businesses, entrepreneurs who are scaling tech companies, and incubators. Doesn't get much better than Y Combinator. Of outer space, a founder of one of the earliest space tech companies in India. And Mother Earth, an entrepreneur who left Silicon Valley to come back to the rice plains to promote organic farming. Of spirits, someone who has launched his own brand of bourbon whiskey. And spirituality, someone who is reason why the world identifies yoga with Mysuru. I am excited and hope you are too. Enjoy the sessions, give us feedback, make us better. And we promise that TiE will give its best to Mysuru. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of TiE Mysuru chapter and all the organizing team, a warm welcome to you, sir. Welcome, sir. Mysuru, the cultural capital of Karnataka, which is well known for festival that takes place during Dasara, and Mysuru is well known for culture, education, heritage structure, palaces, Mysuru Dasara, Mysuru paintings, Mysuru sandal soap, Mysuru paints, Mysuru silk, etc. and etc., which are globally recognized. Today, in this auspicious occasion of TiECon 2021, with us we have His Highness Sri Yaduvir Krishnadatta Chamaraja Vadayar, Royal House, Mysuru. Now I request Mr. Pavan Ranga, the board member, TiE Mysuru, to give a brief introduction of His Highness Sri Yaduvir Krishnadatta Chamaraja Vadayar, the Royal House, Mysuru. Over to Mr. Pavan Ranga.
Thank you, Dr. Lokesh. It's my honor to introduce His Highness Yaduvir Krishnadatta Chamaraja Wadear, the 27th head or custodian of the erstwhile ruling family of the Kingdom of Mysore and the head of the Wadear dynasty. Sri YKC Wadear, as he's known, formally adopted by His Highness Rajmata Dr. Pramoda Devi Wadear, wife of the late H.H. Srikantadatta Narasimharaja Wadear, at the Mysore Palace on the 23rd day of February 2015. His primary education began at the Vidyarthika Vidyalaya, Bangalore, and graduated in the United States with majors in English and economics. In modern times, with the shift in political landscape and in the moving of administration, he has focused his efforts to make Mysore a center for heritage of the Deccan. He continues to stress always the importance of history, culture, and tradition of the state. The traditions and practices of the palace of Mysore are unbroken for over 400 years, after inheriting the same from Vijayanagara Empire, whose legacy is embodied within that of the Wadears of Mysore. His Highness always strived to highlight these traditions as part of the vibrancy of our state. And the view of the current custodian that the rituals, culture, and affairs of the palace should be sustainable development and the use of education as a tool for bettering our world. Sri YKC Wadear is married to Trishika Kumari Wadear, who hails from the Dungarpur royal family in Rajasthan. They have a son, Adhyavir Narasimharaja Wadear. YKC Wadear is a lover of music. He loves reading books, riding horses, and playing tennis. He has identified with several development causes. He is the president and trustee of Sri Jayachamaraja Earth's Educational Trust, Mysore. And he's also the ambassador and advisory board. He's on the advisory board of Kalisu Foundation in Mysore, among several other positions he holds. This is the formal introduction of our young Highness of Mysuru. I have had the privilege of working with him on the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence that is to be established in Mysore. It was a brainchild of his and his foundation, the Berunda Foundation. When I went to discuss with him as CII chairman about this initiative, I was really thrilled to see the excitement he had, the clarity of vision. And I saw how deeply he wanted to impact the city of Mysuru positively. So it is an honor and a pleasure for me to have had this chance to introduce His Highness to all of you. And I request him to come and give the inaugural address for TiECon 2021.
Thank you, sir, for this admiring introduction of Maharaja of Mysuru. Now I request His Highness Sri Yaduvir Krishnadatta Chamaraja Wadear to address the participants. I request you, sir.
Thank you very much. A very good evening to all of the participants here today at the TiECon 2021 Mysuru. It is indeed my proud privilege to be part of this program today on behalf of the Palace in Mysore. And of course, on behalf of the Palace, I wish the program a grand success and may many more entrepreneurial activities get to be started in our wonderful city of Mysore. As we all know, Mysore has been, may not be in the current terminology of entrepreneurship or innovation, but always been a hotbed for such activity, at least in the past century. All of the institutions that were set up by our collective ancestors has been, obviously in today's terms, would be entrepreneurial or innovative activity. The setting up of so many institutions, Mysore Steels, Mysore Cement, the Mysore Silks, Mysore Sandal Soaps, Mysore Towels, etc., were all activities to essentially A, build a brand Mysore, and B, at the same time, set up activities that were inherently Mysore idealistically, as well as generating employment as well as economic opportunity for many of of us in Mysore, and thereby, in current terminology, becoming entrepreneurial or innovative activity in those days. That heritage, I think, while we, of course, stress the importance of our tradition and culture and heritage in that sense, it is also important to note that it wasn't only restricted to traditional culture, but beyond that, we indeed had a heritage of innovation and entrepreneurship here in Mysore, which is what we need to rekindle today going forward. Mysore has always been a hotbed for it, and it is, I think, in our blood or in our DNA to do so and continue to strive so that we may continue that heritage going forward. So I'm very glad that TiECon Mysuru is so active in promoting such activities, and I'm very happy on behalf of the palace to be part of it and also supporting it in our small way. As Mr. Pawanranga very kindly pointed out, we have been working on the Cybersecurity Center for Excellence, and now with the progression of the Karnataka IT cell, the IT ministry rather, in pushing the Beyond Bangalore initiative and setting up the separate KDM offices in Hubli, Mangalore, and Mysore. We wished Mysore to become a center for cybersecurity, as I think fintech has been pushed to Mangalore and agri-tech to Hubli. Not limiting, of course, to these spheres, but nonetheless, we wanted Mysore to focus on cybersecurity and become a hub for cybersecurity, which we had released the white paper for about 2 years ago in this initiative. So it all is nicely folding in now and coming into place as the pieces of the puzzle come together. The first step will be setting up this Center of Excellence in Cybersecurity, which has made tremendous strides now, and we look to be hoping to push that through next year, early next year. This will obviously be the base or the bedrock from which we can build to various other spheres of activity. And cybersecurity is indeed the key word for the new age, and the technologies becoming the same will have to be indigenously developed within India, because if we are to protect or continue to withhold which our sovereignty or anything our nationalistic endeavors, we have to have a strong cybersecurity base that is built by ourselves and not taken in from somewhere else primarily. And secondly, even in the cybersecurity world, it is my understanding that professionals, they are required at least 5 lakh professionals, and nowhere do we have the capacity anywhere else in the world except in India. And I hope that Mysore is the place that can fulfill this requirement going forward. And I hope that our initiatives jointly, be it TiE, be it CII, or even my foundation, builds towards fulfilling this aspect and making Mysore truly a cybersecurity hub. With those words and the updates from our end as to our entrepreneurial activity, as well as best wishes from the palace again towards TiE and everything they've been doing, and of course a very successful event in TiECon 2021. I'll be signing off. My best wishes to you all. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, sir. Your kind words warmed our heart. Thank you for highlighting about entrepreneurial activities taking place across Mysuru and the state. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The world is full of diamonds and gems, and we are having some of them here today to build this event. With this note, I'd like to start with the first inaugural event keynote address on entrepreneurial journey to win by Mr. B.V. Jagadish, Kaj Ventures, USA. Now I'd like to call upon Mr. Sabarishan, CK, Charter Member, TiE Mysuru, to introduce Mr. B.V. Jagadish, Kaj Ventures, Mysuru. Over to Mr. Sabarishan, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Lokesh, and good evening, Heritage Mysuru. Welcome to this TiECon 21. I have the great pleasure in introducing B.V. Jagadish, who's currently the managing partner of Kaj Ventures. He is sort of a trailblazer in setting up startups, and to name a few, he successfully invested and guided companies such as Nutanix, which went into IPO, Yodlee, which also went into IPO, Arkin, which was eventually acquired by VMware, Elastic Box acquired by CenturyLink, NetMagic Solutions acquired by NTT, Ocarina Networks acquired by Dell, and Ankina acquired by Juniper, to name a few. Now, if this is not trailblazing, then I don't know what it is. Now, he has his heart and soul in Mysuru, the brain He has left behind in Silicon Valley. Now, before founding Kaj, V.V. Jagdish served as a founding investor and CEO of Netscaler. Netscaler pioneered the concept of application delivery and was successfully sold to Citrix for US dollars 325 million. And he served as a group VP and GM for Citrix application networking division. Prior to Netscaler, he co-founded and served as CTO of Exodus Communications in 1993 that pioneered the concept of internet data centers. He was also instrumental in the successful IPO of Exodus in 1998. Currently, Jagdish is an active investor, serves on the board of several Silicon Valley startups. He is also an adjunct faculty at Levy School of Business, Southern California University. Jagdish is very actively involved with nonprofits for betterment of the world, such as UVC Foundation, providing scholarships to deserving students, one school at a time, construct school buildings for the underprivileged, Akshay Patra, providing midday meals to 1.6 million children every day. He is an active TiE charter member of TiE Silicon Valley. Most welcome, Jagdish. And now, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, all of you. That's a very kind and wonderful introduction. I really appreciate that. You know, it's such a pleasure and an honor to be here for this TiECon Mysuru. And I'm actually not a stranger to Mysuru because back in 1974, I was actually a student for some time at JCE before I got a transfer back into UBC in Bangalore. And my wife is from Mysore and lots of other relatives and friends. And it's always a pleasure and a privilege for me to visit Mysore and enjoy the hospitality, the tourism, the food, and various other things of Mysore, which I love to do. Every time when I come to India, I love to visit Mysore for a couple of days and enjoy, different aspects of Mysore. And Mysore is also not strange to entrepreneurship as well. Many of you obviously know about N.R. Narayan Murthy, who is a student of NIE. So, in a way, he's from Mysore. And NIE itself has produced some incredible entrepreneurs. And the other entrepreneur who was born and brought up in Mysore, who actually made it very big in Silicon Valley, is Kumar Malavalli. Even though his last name says Malavalli, which is a nearby town to Mysore, he was actually born in Mysore itself. And he invented this whole concept of fiber channel, which is one of the core technologies that is used for storage. And he went on to build Brocade Communications, which had at the peak had a market cap of almost like $30 or $32 billion. So there are many other pioneers who have come from Mysore, who have started companies, who have made it big, who have made it successful. And I'm very, very positive that with this initiative that TiE, which is an anchor kind of an organization that is doing, conferences like this to attract the entrepreneurs, to help entrepreneurs to get mentored by experienced people, get entrepreneurs to get the funding. And these are all sort of like core ingredients for budding entrepreneurs to get the necessary experience that would help them to succeed in whatever ventures that they are into. As a matter of fact, I am myself a product of TiE because the first company that we started, which is Exodus Communications back in 1993, 1994 timeframe, this is a company that myself and my partner KB Chandrasekhar started back in 1993. And at that time in Silicon Valley, Indians were considered to be more as engineers or geeks. Engineers and Indians are not supposed to be business people. They're not supposed to be entrepreneurs. That was not how Indians were classified as. So we were one of the very early ones to break the ice at that time and started the company. And we brought the company up to a certain level before we got the funding. And as a matter of fact, the first funding came from some of the early Thai pioneers like Kanwal Reiki, Suhas Patil, and many others. And that's what actually helped us to get to the next level. And once we got that funding, there was never looking back in terms of the vision that we had and the dream that we had. We just pursued, and we went on to take this company public in 1998. And in 1999, President Bill Clinton actually named Exodus Communication as a national asset. The kind of customers that we had, President named Exodus as a national asset. So it just shows the power of entrepreneurship and power of what two people who can build a company from personal savings and with a great vision, great idea, and how you can go on to build some incredible companies. And I'll give you several examples in my presentation as well. So all that entrepreneurs need, right, is having that vision, having that dream, and pursuing that in a very passionate manner. And obviously, the hurdles that you face is not going to be easy, but you have to believe in yourself. So in terms of numbers, about 90% of the companies that are founded actually go under. So this is not a good statistics to say, but 10% of the people actually make it. So what I'm going to share today is how can you be part of that 10% rather than being part of the 90%. So let me just share a few slides that I have created for this presentation, and then we'll go into some question and answers that hopefully should answer any of the concerns or questions that any of you may have. Share the screen. Got it. Okay. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, it's visible, sir. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. I just want to start off by saying that the impact of science, math, and entrepreneurship on human race since the 1820s to now is enormous, enormous. So I've taken a couple of interesting statistics here in terms of how poverty got reduced from 1820s to now, how basic education, which was nothing to where it is today, literacy or democracy or vaccination. I mean, we just went through or still going through this whole COVID situation. And you look at the impact that vaccination has created to the mankind in terms of saving lives and creating a healthy life and child mortality. So the point I'm trying to make here is entrepreneurship and innovation can lead to massive impact on human race. And, if you ask any entrepreneur, the dream of an entrepreneur is to create these successful companies. And most of the time, we look at successful companies and we think that, it has been a straight line from the time a vision an entrepreneur had to where the company is today, because you read about a successful company and it just looks like it's a straight line. But in reality, it is not. Every company goes through these ups and downs. And I've highlighted, by the way, I'll be very happy to share this presentation. I've highlighted some of the challenges that entrepreneurs actually go through while building their company from where the world before the company was to where the world after the company is. Every company goes through these challenges. So don't be afraid as you face these challenges, because every company would have gone through. You just never get to hear about it. You never get to see about it. because you only see when a company is made afterwards. You look at Tesla, which is almost like $1 trillion in market cap today, was almost going to belly up 10, 12 years ago. And somehow certain things came together and then the company took off after that. And it happens to everybody. It happens to my own company, both at Excelus and at Netscaler as well. So every company goes through these kind of challenges. So don't get taken aback just because you're going to go through these challenges. The important thing as you are embarking on this entrepreneurship is to follow the trends and build a company towards where the trend is. I mean, one of the famous quotes that I have taken, this is a ice hockey well-known player in Northern America. And essentially he says that I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. Which means you should be looking at where the world is moving towards and not where the world is today. Because if you try to solve a problem for today, very likely there will be 10 other entrepreneurs who have already thought through this and who have already solved this problem. So you have to really think about what those trends are in the industry. I'll give you some examples of where the trends are, and I'm pretty sure each of you can think about, some of these trends as to where the market is heading towards. So from the technology perspective, what are some of the trends? Data is the new oil, meaning data is created in abundance across the board, whether it is a human body, whether it is corporations, whether it is educational institutions, anything, or healthcare institutions. Enormous amount of data is being created. Now, what do you do with the data? How do you interpret this data and then make sense out of it by applying some of these modern technologies? The second one is the 5G technology, which is just upcoming. It is just upcoming. Don't look at it from consumer perspective, because you cannot compete from a consumer perspective doing the 5G against these Qualcomms of the world or Samsungs of the world or Apples or any of those things. Look at it from the point of view how 5G is going to solve problems in the enterprise. 5G has some very unique characteristics. The latency that 5G offers is the lowest, meaning you can really run a lot of real-time applications with the 5G. The human genomics and personalized medicines, as many of you know, human body has been sequenced. That means you have a digital information about the human body. So it is almost imperative that by applying computer science technologies and other innovation into this field, you should be able to create personalized medicines, meaning no longer we need to experience side effects. If somebody has cancer and goes through a chemotherapy, we all have seen the kind of side effects that these people go through. That should not happen. No, there is no need to kill good cells because you want to kill the bad cells. So those problems can be solved today, which you could not have solved just a few years ago. And digitizing old to new, lot of applications. I'll give you some examples in the next slide. A lot of applications that were done in the most conventional manner are getting converted into new. So if you can think of what are some of those new applications that can be digitized. So obviously blockchain, security, and infrastructure for the modern situation. Infrastructure will never die. The demand for all the data, the voice, the video, augmented reality, virtual reality, all of those things is actually going to push more and more on the cloud infrastructure or on private clouds and so on and so forth. That means there is constant innovation that is required to upgrade this infrastructure. So if you look at some of the examples of companies that followed the trend, right? when Amazon was born, somewhere around 95, 96 timeframe, the internet growth had just then started. So thinking about what kind of applications this growth would need, and somebody thinking about this e-commerce as the core application. Same with Google. Google was looking at, okay, if internet is going to grow at an exponential pace, that means there'll be zillions of websites and zillions of content that's going to be available on the internet. How can you leverage that and create a search engine that'll be a lot easier to do? Can you do a Google today? Probably it's not worth it. It is not worth actually doing yet another Google, but you can actually do a Google related kind of thing for vertical searches. Pick certain areas where Google doesn't do a good job, and you can do a phenomenal search engine in certain vertical areas. Uber, as we all know, I mean, here in India, we have Ola and companies like that, which digitize this whole taxi business. So that is the time when the GPS technology was almost commoditized, and lots of other internet applications started to happen. Mobile technology started to evolve. So that was like the right time for a company like a Uber or an Airbnb or a DoorDash, kind of companies to be born, leveraging all these smartphones and internet growth, number of people who are using these smartphones and so on and so forth. And the founders essentially took advantage of that and the trend that the world was moving towards. So lately, you must have heard of this company called Snowflake, which is in the enterprise segment. Again, massive amount of data. Somebody had to look at this data and bring them all together and make sure that data is not repeated. So these guys created what is called as the data lake. And guess what? Interestingly, every one of these companies did not have enough cash. They were not founded by rich people. They were all founded by really middle class, lower middle class, and very ambitious kind of founders. And every company was founded by no more than 2 or 3 founders. That means if entrepreneurs created companies like this with 2 or 3 founders with lots of difficulty, right? A lot of them from initial personal money, and then eventually gaining some good momentum and raising money from venture capitalists, any one of us can do this. So I was also asked to talk about, since in my portfolio, I have a lot of exits as well. And of course, I have lots of failures too, which has helped me to learn every day. So exits typically happen either in the form of an IPO or companies are built to be acquired, meaning lots of other big companies which are searching, which are looking for some great technology companies or companies that have built some good momentum, which can be a complementary to what they're doing. So a lot of times when these acquisitions happen, founders are actually very happy building and selling companies to these big companies, because building a company to go IPO today is a very, very, very laborious and expensive process. So what many entrepreneurs do is they pick an idea that is like a gap in the big companies that are dominating this market. So you can visualize the area that you want to go in. Who are some of these big players? What kind of gaps actually exist? And can I solve that problem? And very likely, you could be one of those companies that can pretty much be picked up by these big companies. So key ingredients of a startup. Number 1, people. Number 2 is the product market fit. Number 3 is relentless execution, growing customers, growing the company, and bring processes to scale. And lastly, managing your finances in the most responsible manner, because we will all go through challenging times. And whatever cash you have to manage that in the most responsible manner. Don't blow up the cash that you have, because once there is no money in the bank, nobody is going to come to your rescue. Whatever money you have, or whatever money that you can actually get to raise, use that money in the most responsible manner. So these are the 4 core things that every company has to focus on. People, meaning including yourself, founders, and the people that you're going to bring on board, right? And figuring out the product that you have built, is it needed in the market? Is someone wanting to buy this product? Is someone willing to pay for that product, right? Don't try to build a nice to have product. If you build a nice to have product, go figure out how do you turn that into a must have product. This is what is called as pivot. So pivoting is not uncommon at all, because as you're building what you think as a nice to, as an important product could turn out to be a nice to have product. So you have to figure out how do you then pivot into building a must have products. An entrepreneur needs to wear multiple hats. So in the beginning, you're not going to have a lot of people, but there will be all these roles that need to be filled by entrepreneurs. So if you are the entrepreneur and CEO, you need to fill the gap. That means you don't need to be an expert in every field, but you have to keep the ball rolling. This is almost like a hub and spoke kind of a thing, right? If a spoke breaks, it's the job of the hub to keep the wheel continuously rolling. So as you are building your company, continuously keep getting feedback at every level of, don't try to build your company within 4 walls, thinking that I have the greatest idea on earth and I'm going to conquer this world. That's not the way it's going to work. You have to get validation from potential customers, potential partners, or whoever that is. Don't hesitate to go and pitch your idea and get the validation from respective parties. This picture is a representation of how a typical startup company growth happens. The early stage is like this drunken walk, ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. And once you find this product fit, then slowly you will start seeing the market growing, and then you start experiencing hyper growth and then the scale. So this is where the execution is very, very, very important, because a lot of companies fail on the execution part. And as you hit the hyper growth, your own success will lead to a failure for you. So this is a kind of an interesting slide, because all of us know the snake and ladder kind of a game that we all have seen, right? As you get some good number, you try to move, and then if you hit the wrong slot, you get bitten by the snake and then you fall down. This is exactly what happens even in business as well. So be prepared and avoid and be cautious as to how not to get bitten by this snake. You know, in a game, you will have no choice, because luck is the only factor that plays as to what number you get. But in business, you can actually play the game in a way that you can avoid hitting those bad numbers. So idea is a very small percentage of the overall success. It's no more than 50 to 20%. Execution is 80 to 85%. So just because you have an idea, don't think that you can build a great company out of it. Every company that you see today, they are focused on execution. 80 to 85% of the company that is being built is execution. And don't ignore that part at all just because you have a great idea. And entrepreneur's life, if you define that, is very different for a few years compared to others in order to be different for the rest of the years. So, which means the first few years, I mean, when I was building my companies early on, right? Literally, you are thinking about the company 24/7. You're working 14 to 16 hours a day. And that's the kind of focus that is required. And once you do that, then once you build successful companies, then you have a reputation. you have the finances to control your life, you can then control the life the way you want. The rest of the years will be very, very different compared to a lot of your own colleagues, a lot of your own friends who will still be doing the 9-to-5 kind of work. So remember this, your life during the entrepreneur days is going to be different, and that's the way it is. But this is how you shape the rest of your life. So with this, let me stop sharing, and any questions that any of you have, I'll be very happy to answer.
Okay, while we wait for the attendees to raise question, I have a couple of questions for you. One is, what was the spark in your personal life which moved you away from 9-to-5 job to because that is the catalyst here. Okay, generally we are all very contented and things like that. That was one question. The second question is, given that India has such a social disparity, economic disparity, and all that, a lot of social enterprises are the need of the hour. So when somebody promotes such a company, is a golden parachute an ideal way here? It may work. It would have worked very well in the US. But do you see that happening in India, or you expect the founder to be associated lifelong with the project so that he can see the impact on the ground?
Yeah,
So,
no, both are good questions. So let me answer the first one. The dream for me to start a company actually started when I was doing my master's in Bombay, and then I interned with a company called Bombay Electronics. And I was so fortunate to work with this founder of this company, Dr. Ajay Nain, who had a PhD from Case Western Reserve University. And they were like 20, 30 people. And because of that, I literally on a daily basis, right, I got to interact with the founder. And that is what triggered the interest for me that, hey, someday I'm going to start my own company. And after like being in the US for about 10, 11 years, after gaining enough experience and after gaining, after saving some enough money, where I had the courage to jump in and do my own, the frustration that I was working for this very large company, and this was probably the first time I actually worked for a very, very large company. I mean, until then, all my life, starting from Bombay to even Silicon Valley, till 1992, all my life, I just worked for early stage startup companies. So pretty exciting. And 92, for whatever reason, I joined this very big company. And I was really like frustrated with the way how big companies operate. Honestly, working for that company is what led me to saying that I don't want to work for any more company and I'm going to pursue my dream. And I quit my, back in those days, a six-figure job and jumped into a job that obviously didn't pay me anything for almost 1.5 years until we got the funding. So obviously financially you need to be prepared to handle a situation like that, especially when you have family and children as well. That's a very important decision that you're making in your life. So you don't want to be irresponsible. Now, coming back to the social impact companies. So social impact, there are two sets, right? One is non-profit organizations that typically you raise money from donors or corporations through this CSR or whatever that go on to do wonderful job, like this Akshay Patra that I'm involved with, or with one school at a time where we actually go and build dilapidated government schools, right? And that helps in each school, almost like 500 children can now sit in very safe schools, or whether it is my UEC foundation where we give scholarship to about 250 students and so on and so forth. The second component is the social entrepreneurship, right? Social entrepreneurship is not necessarily a nonprofit. It is actually a profit-centric kind of a company. In fact, I like that model because social entrepreneurship is what is possible to scale an organization. So today, I work with 3 different companies, one in the US and 2 in India. So the one in India, in Bangalore, it's called One Bridge. And this is headed by Madan Padaki, and an amazing company. He's done an incredible job in bringing the e-commerce and other benefits that the rural is missing out. I mean, you talked about the disparity, you talked about the disconnect, the digital divide that exists between urban and rural. And this is exactly what he's trying to bridge, right, between the urban and the rural, so that you can bring in a way that rural can understand, and yet they can participate in the digital. And I work with another amazing entrepreneur from Delhi called Mruda. This Mruda creates a lot of agricultural related products. So that helps bring all these millets and millet-based products that he then sells, right, to various markets. And during the process, he's educating the villagers and the agriculturists the economically better way to cultivate. And as a result, productivity actually goes up. So for the same land that one has got, if I'm making 1 rupee today, with the techniques that Arun Nagpal from Mruda, he educates these people, suddenly the 1 rupee can become 1.5 rupees or 2 rupees, right? Very simple techniques. He does that, and then he takes those products, brings it to the market. So it creates a win-win-win across the board. And in the US, I work with a company called People Shores, where the People Shores is doing an incredible job in helping the disadvantaged people, giving them the training, and using that training, he gets the job from various companies and provides them jobs, right? Do the consulting kind of a job. But this is not like a hardcore computer science kind of a consulting. It is more like creating some art, creating word, editing, some documents and automation through Automation Anywhere, or companies like that, learning those things and applying those skills into providing some sort of a consulting work for large corporations. And all these companies make money and they make profit. And this profit actually is the one that helps to scale the company to very large. So I believe that you will see a lot more companies coming in India and even in the US as well, which will be more of these social impact kind of companies that are profit-centric. But the profit-centric will not be like what a capitalistic company is going to be.
Thank you so much, Jagdish. There are a few more questions, but I think we have already encroached into the next session. We will track your visit to India next time, and we'll pull you into Mysore to have a session with you alone, so that your DNAs can be transported here to other people who are prospective founders.
Absolutely.
It was an amazing story. I can't tell you how amazing it was. Thank you so much for your time, and over to Dr. Lokesh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Subration, sir. And thanks, Mr. B. Jagdish, sir, for putting a throw light on provoking our information and brainstorming session, and also conveying us some of the interesting facts. Thank you, sir. Now I call upon Dr. Ramashastri Ambarish, Charter Member, TiE Mysuru, to address the next event, that is panel discussion on incubation, acceleration, and scale. The panelists are Anu Ariharan, the partner, Y Combinators Continuity Fund, USA, Shyam Shantar, CEO, O3 Capital Singapore, Mr. Rajiv Raghunandan, Managing Partner, Arali Ventures. Now I request Dr. Ramashastri Ambarish, the Charter Member, TiE Mysuru, to moderate the event. Over to you, sir. I request to have the panel discussion for 30 minutes, followed by a question and answer session. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lokesh.
Thank you, sir.
And that was a very inspiring speech by BVJ. We call him BVJ Jagdish. And it's a tough act to follow, but we'll try. We have an exciting panel lined up for you. And we have three very distinguished and panelists with impeccable credentials for us. First, we have Ms. Anu Hariharan, who is from Y Combinator, which is the veritable holy grail for all startup entrepreneurs in the world. Anu is a partner at the YC Continuity Fund, a growth fund that invests in YC's own startup alumni. She has led investments in Brex, Instacart, Fair, among a host of others. Previously, she was a partner with A16Z, also known as Anderson Horowitz, again, another marquee name in the VC world. While there, she focused on consumer internet growth investments and worked with companies like Airbnb, OfferUp, etc. Anu holds an MS in electrical engineering from Virginia Tech and an MBA from Wharton School. Our next panelist is Mr. Rajiv Raghunandan. He shares an umbilical cord bond with Mysuru. His mother is from Mysuru. And Rajiv is co-founder and managing partner of Arali Ventures, a seed fund that has a niche focus, B2B companies, a seed fund which makes investments in what BVJ called the drunken walk phase of startups. And Arali has invested in Decodem AI, Unbox Robotics, Wingman, among other companies. Prior to Arali, Rajiv spent a couple of decades in leadership positions at Arvind Garments, Arthur Andersen, Infosys BPO, and InfraHedge, which is a subsidiary of State Street. His experience covers the entire gamut from corporate finance, business consulting, outsourcing, and technology, and includes 5 years in the startup ecosystem. Rajiv also runs a not-for-profit called HeadJ, which is engaged in senior citizen care and children's education. He has a BCom from Bangalore University and an MBA from IIM Bangalore. Welcome, Rajiv.
Thank you.
Our final panelist is Mr. Shyam Senthar. He's a local Mysurean who's made it big. He attended the Ramakrishna Mission School in Mysore and also earned a BE from the JCE Engineering College. Shyam is the founding partner of O3 Capital, a mid-market investment bank focused on providing capital raising and cross-border M&A services. He's responsible for the overall growth and focused on identifying innovative ideas and products. Shyam has more than 2 decades of experience across financial advisory, asset management, markets, and technology. Prior to O3, he was a partner at Avendus Capital, and he was also with iFlex Solutions. Shyam holds an MBA from IIM Bangalore and is currently based in Singapore. Welcome, Shyam. We have actually covered all 3, incubation, acceleration, and scale. We have a fantastic panel. Now, let me actually start with Rajiv. Now, in general, when we are looking to make investments, whether it's VC or PE or even personal level investments, there are 3 things that we look at. Is it a good team? And is it a good business? And am I entering at the right valuation? Now, for a startup entrepreneur, one of the questions he or she would like to know is, how do seed fund investors and VCs make the determination which companies they invest in? What do you look at when you're making a seed investment? Rajiv.
Sure, Amrish. Thanks. So, I think, like you rightly said, right, when Jagdish talked about the drunken walk phase. So when we invest in that phase, it's very hard to look at any kind of specific metrics that may be revenue, cash flows, or any of that stuff. So what it comes down to is really 2 things. One, which is popularly called as founder market fit, right? Because you possibly still do not have product market fit. So what we look at is really founder market fit, an evaluation of what the founders bring to the table, and within that I'll just peel it into three things. Vision, which is to say, again, Jagdish talked about, I want to be not where the puck is, but where the puck will be, right? So that is what we look for in terms of, do the founders, have a sense of what this space is likely to evolve into. To ambition. Ambition is extremely critical, right? Because as a VC investor, you want the founders to go the whole hog. There will be offers along the way that could be very attractive for the founders. And that's actually one of the hardest for us to evaluate, right? Will these folks last the whole way? Because sometimes an exit from a company may be good for founders, but may not necessarily translate to be super for investors, right? So that's the second thing. And three, which is, I think, equally hard to determine, is the hustle quotient, right? And I guess there's no better word, than the hustle quotient, which is to say that, are these folks flexible, right? Can they make compromises? Can they go away from, their original vision? Can they sometimes just execute even when perfection is not achieved, right? So all of this, I kind of bring it to three, which is vision, ambition, and hustle, and then how it fits with the market. The only other thing we look at from a market, from an underlying market space is two things, right? One is like every VC and every investor saying, is this market large enough? Now, why does the market have to be large enough? Because the investor has to make an exit. Sometimes markets may still be good for founders to build businesses. That may still be a very attractive business. You can build a 50, 100, 100, and 200 crore business, which is a great business. It just may not be VC investable because the overall market may be a 400 crore market or a 500 crore market. And within that such a market, does the business model have potential to grow in a non-linear fashion? And does the team have the capability to support the non-linear growth, right? Long answer, but hopefully I covered some of the elements.
Thank you. Now, let me turn to Anu. Y Combinator Startup Accelerator Program has been spectacularly successful. I think it's an understatement to say it's been spectacularly successful. Over the last 15, 16 years, I think they've had 3,200 plus startups through their accelerator program. And what is interesting is I learned that they admit only about less than 2% of the applicants into their program. So it's often said that it's easier to get to Harvard than getting into Y Combinator seed accelerator. So I'm sure everybody would want to know, what is the criteria? What do you look at when YC actually chooses an entrepreneur for the seed accelerator program?
Sure. First, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. I actually went to undergrad in Surathkal and spent 10 years in Karnataka. So I did learn Kannada, though I don't remember it very well right now. So to answer your question, actually what YC looks for in founders, it's very evident in the YC application. So I'd encourage all of you who are in the audience to go through the application. Sometimes founders have told me that just writing that application really helps them solidify if they have a startup idea to work on. It's not very different from what Rajiv said, right? So YC is often the pre-seed check. It's not even a seed check. So 75% of the startups that we admit have not launched. So they don't have anything to show. But what we are looking for is you as founders, do you have a very unique insight about the problem you're solving that the rest of the world doesn't know? Is it a big enough problem that you're solving? And how long have you and the co-founders known each other? It's just those three things. And we ask the questions in different forms in the application, which is still trying to get to give us a good idea of how good you are as a team. Are you resourceful enough to persevere through the roadblocks? And do you see something that others don't? And that's it. And so it's not a lot different. Actually, it's not a lot different at any stage. I actually help lead our growth fund. So I often say the criteria can fall in three buckets. It's team, it's early signs of product market fit, and your ability to hire and build a great company. Now in the pre-seed stage, the weight we give for each of those criteria is different. Obviously, we're not looking for you to build a team before you have a product. but we pay a lot of attention to team and product market fit.
That's useful. Now, let me turn to YC's focus on India. I know that in the past several years, YC became more active in Latin America and in India, going by the press reports. For instance, it says that your Winter 21 cohort has, I don't know, around 30 companies from India. And I personally know some of your YC alumni from India. Razorpay, I think, is one, Misho, Katabok, well-known names in India. Now, can you confirm this increased focus on India, which is a great thing from YC, number one? And number two, if some entrepreneur is accepted into your program, do they have to relocate? The founder has to go to the valley for a few weeks or 3 months, the duration of the program? Could you please elaborate on that?
Happy to. So, the second largest applicant pool after the US for YC is from India. So the function of the increasing batch size and more companies from India is just by the sheer fact that we have a lot more alums from India. And that's not surprising. So if you look at how YC was founded 16 years ago, it was founded for the 21 to 25-year-old graduating out of engineering school or 2 years out of undergrad and teaching them how to start a company. And India has some of the best engineering grads. And so we started doing a lot of outreach in engineering universities in India. And Razorpay was actually both the founders were just 1 year out of IIT Roorkee. And it was one of the earliest companies that we had admitted through the YC program. So it's not a function of just increased focus. It's true that it is the second largest applicant pool. India has incredible talented individuals in engineering, and we want to see more of them start companies. And so, yes, I think we have close to 200 YC alumni companies just from India, and majority of them were added in the last 2 years, and we hope to keep up with that. I do think that a lot has changed in the last 10 years. If you look at the Indian startups from 10 years ago versus today. And so we are actually excited at the future potential. To answer your question on do they need to come to the US? Yes, until the pandemic happened. So until the pandemic happened, YC did require founders to come from India for the 12 weeks. We didn't ask them to relocate permanently because we believed that one of the biggest benefits international founders got was when they came to San Francisco and saw the US startups, they got a renewed sense of confidence. One of the founders from Rappi, which is one of the largest LATAM companies, which YC had funded, told me this, which is they came to the US and saw the US startups and said, wow, we have equal or better engineering talent in LATAM. We should be able to build a better company. So it really it's a confidence gain. And so a lot of Indian startup founders have told us the same. But since the pandemic, YC has gone remote. So we actually don't need you to come to the US. And they pretty much attend the full batch program remote. The demo day is virtual as well. I think post-pandemic, we'll still revisit at least to bring them in cohorts for a week or two, so that there is more in-person programming. But I do think for international founders, there'll be a big component that's virtual.
Interesting that you mentioned that YC actually targets the 21 to 25-year-old graduates in science and engineering. I recall recently seeing a news bite which said that there are more people from my age group who are becoming entrepreneurs in the US and around the world these days. So anyway, with that, let me turn to Shyam. Shyam, of course, you are a mid-market investment bank providing a full range of services. And by the time these entrepreneurs and companies come to you, they would have achieved certain scale. And from my experience of running public market funds, right, one of the toughest decisions is not buying; it's always selling. Whether in public markets too, the toughest decision. The successful fund managers know actually how to manage the sell decision. So how do you, what advice would you have for an entrepreneur who has built up a certain scale? He can either actually go, raise another round of funding and then go further, or he can actually, like BBJ was saying, certain companies are built to actually sell to a larger company. So the sell versus raise another round of funding, what advice would you give?
Yeah, so good point, Ambrish. So if you look at it, from the founder psyche and the skill sets that are required. So what you need to scale a company from 0 to 100 is probably different from what you need from 100 to 1,000 and from the 1,000 to 1 million, right? So these are all different skill sets. When you're small, you probably are a much more close-knit unit. The founder knows the second son's or third girlfriend's name of every employee. Whereas as you start scaling up, you need to start delegating more, and you need to start building a platform. So there are some founders who manage to scale through all these levels. Now, all the names which BVJ mentioned earlier, a lot of these garage startups which manage to scale fantastically well. Or you have companies like WhatsApp, which with 18 people or 30 people got an $18 billion valuation as well, right? But for most of us who live in the real world, I guess it's a call which you take, saying that, yes, I've brought you to this level. A lot of founders do step back and then get in professional CEOs. So that's one option to go. Or you just say that, yes, at my stage in, this is my skill set, this is my stage in life, this is my expertise, and hence it makes sense for me to step back. The other decision which can potentially also influence this is, in terms of, again, going back to what BVJ mentioned earlier. So some of the companies are actually built to address gaps in the portfolio of large tech companies. So probably Anu can touch upon that much better, because this is very, very prevalent in US, where people say, yes, now I'm building this to sell this to Salesforce or sell this to Google. So if you're taking that approach, then yes, there is only an exit A or B or C possible, which is you need to sell it to that ecosystem. So I guess that becomes the key decision point.
Okay, thank you, Shyam. Now, so far we've looked at the decision of investment from the fund manager perspective, seed funding, VC funding, or even a mid-market investment bank giving advice. Now let's flip it around. I've met some very successful entrepreneurs, both in the US and India, who actually have told me that they stayed away from VC funding for a good reason, and they've built very, very good businesses. So what are the characteristics of a startup that makes it VC investable, or how does an entrepreneur determine whatever startup he's building, it actually is ready for VC funding? Are there any traits that attributes you can point to where you say, okay, if your startup is this way, then you should not go for VC funding?
I can go. I'd say we actually teach our YC startups to be default alive very early on. So in fact, as part of their weekly investor updates from the batch, we ask them to report whether you're default alive, which means you don't need money and you can self-sustain the company without money. And it's just more from the philosophy of be lean, because you want to always control your destiny. So the mental model we give founders is, if you're growing really fast and it's healthy growth, and let's say you're growing 50-70% week over week, and you don't have enough cash to support that growth, that's when you really can use venture funding, and it makes sense. Venture funding is not for everyone. Not every business needs venture funding, but it's really, if you're growing really fast and you need the extra cash because you can't generate cash flows at the same pace, and you need extra money to invest in growth ahead, then it's definitely VC fundable. And the classic B2B software businesses, the consumer internet businesses,
Yes.
all fall in that bucket. But Zapier is our portfolio company, which is from YC. The only money they took was from YC, and they completely bootstrapped the company after that. And it's a very thriving business, well over 100 million revenue. And, you know, Wade from Zapier always says, I print more cash in the bank than I know what to do with it. So why will I raise venture money? Which makes total sense. But very few companies are blessed with that.
Correct.
And so the thing you have to ask is, if you're growing really fast and need to invest in growth, then it would make sense to raise venture money.
No, that's true. Actually, earlier, I think Rajiv also alluded to it. The structure of the way VC funds are structured, we all know. You know, you shoot for a certain IRR, and then over 5 years you have to return the capital. And given the 90% failure rate of startups that Vijay was alluding to, it really means that VC funds are probably predisposed to looking at, like Anu you were saying, a large addressable market and then rapid scaling up. Yes, it happens. But then not every startup is blessed with that. Now, if one determines that VC funding is not suitable for me, but still I'm not printing cash every day, I need cash. Is there any source of patient capital? I mean, these days it's more like an oxymoron, patient capital. So is there any source of patient capital for such entrepreneurs?
I could quickly jump in there, Ambrish, and I think I'm very passionate about this, right? Because before we set up early, we were like a boutique iBanking firm working with early stage firms in India, trying to raise capital. And we also learned the ropes. So we were on the other side, founders pitching to VC funds. And what Anu said is, that realization grows on quickly. And having been an angel investor, you kind of know that. And honestly, I believe that maybe 50 to 60% of the businesses that maybe reach out to VC funds in India today are actually not VC investable. So this kind of self-assessment that you speak of, I believe is super critical and very important. And some of the criteria Anu kind of outlined. And I actually encourage a lot of folks, because they are very smart folks. They're very passionate, building strong businesses, but they don't tick some of the boxes that maybe VC funds are looking for. And that's where, there are, what those other sources are, especially when you're at an early stage. It comes down to the usual suspects around good angel investors. And also these are not the angel investors, maybe who are the classic VC angel investors, right? These could be folks who are looking for a different return profile. They may be fine building like a fixed income return profile or a dividend return profile. I have a few LPs in my fund who, constantly, tease me with the fact that, hey, you're talking of a 30-40% IRR over this 8-year, 10-year period. I generate 45% IRR in a services business that I invested 10 years ago, right? So, I mean, there are those kind of investors out there. There are also strategic investors, which means there is a company in that area which is larger. They are, let's say, a $100 million company. And you're building something in an area of interest for them, and you're not VC investable basis the self-assessment checklist that, let's say, Anu pointed out, then maybe you go out to them and you're fine, let's say, giving 25%, because you're not just going to get money, you'll get go-to-market access, you may get IP, you may get access to tech resources and stuff like that. So there are a couple that comes to mind like that. And of course, if you're generating cash, you have various forms of debt financing, revenue-based financing that have popped up over the last few years also.
Fair enough. That's a fair point. Before I turn to Shyam, there's just one question which BVJ talked about pivots in business and business models. I want to ask Anu, I mean, there's this famous case of Brex. I think they joined your seed accelerator as an AR firm, if I'm not wrong. And within 3 weeks of joining the program, they pivoted into a fintech business. And spectacularly successful, if I may say so. The last valuation I saw was, I don't know, north of 10 billion valuation. Now, I was curious whether this pivot in the business model is an integral part of your accelerator program, or it just so happens.
it happens, but we also check for it. So one of the things that's actually not known about YC that well is a lot of the founders we bet on actually didn't have a shot before us. They probably tried raising from 100 investors. They went around the block 2-3 times. They even applied to YC twice. It's usually we say third time is the charm because we actually see how long you persevered. And so we bet on talent. Honestly, that's what's special about YC, and kudos to the YC founders like Paul, Jessica, Robert, and Trevor for building such an amazing program and institution to do that. It's unlocked talent in different parts of the world. It's purely a bet on talent. So with Brex specifically, the founders we thought were exceptional. They had built Stripe for Brazil when they were 16 in Brazil. And they actually sold the company to Stone, and the Stripe founders had actually referred them to YC. And they applied with the virtual reality startup idea. So when we interviewed them, we said, we think you're exceptional founders. We don't like your idea. We don't think you're going to make much progress, but we're going to let you do it. Are you rational enough that if it doesn't work, you will try something else? And they said, yeah, we're not going to quit, because they both were in Stanford. And they said, we're not going to quit Stanford for some random idea. It better be a big company. And so we said, okay, and we let them in, right? And 3 weeks into the whole process, they realized that they didn't know much about virtual reality. They didn't know much about hardware, and they actually applied for a credit card to buy components for hardware, and they didn't get approved. And that's how the idea of Brex was born. They said, wow, so we have funding from YC, but we can't get a credit card. And that's sort of how they realized this was a problem more with all their startup founders, and they launched Brex.
Very interesting story. Shyam, let me turn to you now. I'm sure with your firms, you often give them advice about how to manage their investors, how to manage boards, etc. Now, when an entrepreneur is often actually, they're faced with this choice, whether to go with one investor or a set of investors. How do they make that choice? Any advice you would offer them?
In most situations, beggars can't be choosers, so they go with whoever gives the money. But on a more serious note, I guess boardroom dynamics are one of the most critical things which founders face as companies scale, because investors do come in at different time frames. They invest different quantum of capital, and they'll end of the day have different agenda. Although everyone wants to make money, but some of them may want to exit at a certain stage. Some of them will want to carry on because they're launching a new fund. This is a fund 3 investment. They're on the road shows for fund 5, etc., right? So to the extent possible, what we recommend and advise is to ensure that they have funds which work in a cohesive manner, investors who have worked well in prior companies. If you need to go to beyond 2 investors, then try and see if you can get a pool of investors who demonstrated that yes, they worked well, right? And so there are some famous cases in India where companies which have actually gone down from unicorn level to 0 as well, right? Because of boardroom challenges. So that's, I think, fairly critical in terms of choosing who your investors are. Don't go for the right maximum valuation, but go for ensure that you have good boardroom dynamics.
Good. That's actually very critical advice. As one grows, actually it becomes even more important. Now let me turn to, as you all know, TiECon 2021, TiECon Mysuru. We are trying to showcase the startup ecosystem that's evolving in Mysuru. And Mysuru has always had fantastic colleges and universities. And Shyam, I'm also a product of Mysuru. Anu went to Suratkal. Now, from your perspective, what would be one thing that Mysuru should do to actually build this startup ecosystem in Mysuru. Let me start with Rajiv. You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, Publish, like, we were chatting the other day. I think the fact, this would have been a much harder question to answer maybe 2 years ago. I think what COVID has done, at least locally in India, right, is to just demonstrate very clearly that actually the tech talent in the so-called tech hubs of India, which is Bangalore, maybe NCR and to a little extent in Pune, is actually tech talent that is coming from all parts of the country.
Yes.
Right? And what COVID demonstrated, it gave us a deep insight into that demographic, because you pick any tech team, they're now back at their homes in various towns all over India. And two, I think COVID also equally demonstrated that, this whole remote model is possible. You can access tech talent from where, it came. Yes, there may be some niche tech talent like your CTO, your product manager, which may still be in, let's say, the big hubs, but that's fine. You can build the rest of the team in some of these other locations. And today, where we have this glut of capital and tech talent has become so expensive in Bangalore and possibly in NCR, actually founders have no choice. A lot of my founders have no choice, right? Because companies that Anu and let's say maybe even Shyam fund, they just have so much capital that they've driven up the prices so high. So, I do have companies which have in our portfolio who are building a tech team in Indore, someone else who's building a tech team in Coimbatore. So I think the key is, what can TiE do? I don't have an answer, but I think if if there are founders, or not even founders, if there are, let's say, product managers who are from Mysore, right, build that community and get that community to maybe say, I'm going to take some of my friends and I'm going to live in Mysuru, right? And I think that it will be a great way for, let's say, the tech talent to start to grow. So maybe a community of product managers who have Mysuru connections, you start to build that community. I'm sure you will have 30-40 people joining in, and that could become the seed community that starts to grow.
That's good advice. Anu, what would be your one-line advice to TiE Mysuru? How do we build it up?
Yeah, I think a lot of the YC startups in India are now complaining about access to talent. It's the most difficult labor market because all the US companies are hiring from India and they're happy for their employees to be based in India. I actually think it's great. It's great for the entire talent market in India, even though I know it is tough for the founders, but it's actually great for the ecosystem. The best way to become a startup founder, I often say, is to work at a startup. So I think the number one thing you all can do is amazing access to talent in Mysore. So why not make it easier for the startups in India to hire talent from Mysore, or even set up their second hub, as Rajiv was saying, in Mysore. And then that's kind of how you see the birth of more startup founders, because you generally work at other startups and you then decide that you have your own idea and you want to start a company of your own. I mean, it took years to start Silicon Valley and for Silicon Valley to be where it is. People talk about disruption of Silicon Valley. I don't think it gets disrupted soon, but I think the remote work helps accelerate more Silicon Valley communities across the world. And it'll take time for it to build, but there's definitely an opportunity now and a window now to be able to do that.
Fantastic. Shyam, you want to add something to it?
If you had asked me this question when I had just passed out of JC, I would have said increase the bus frequency for routes 2930. But so see, if you see what Mysure's gotten going for it is, you have a good pool of engineering talent coming out of all these colleges from Mysore, Mandya, Hassan, etc. You have good entrepreneurs. And if you look at what used to happen 20 years ago, there was a good bunch of electronic companies. So, you had L&Ts of the world, which is why the next wave of companies where, I don't know if Pawan is still around, but you have sons of, kind of companies which actually did very well. So you have good entrepreneurs coming out of Mysore, whether it's Sudan or whether it's Pawan, etc. Right? So that pool should be there, like what Anu was mentioning. If you have a good tech company, out of which you'll have 100 new companies emerging. Today, you have a lot of companies coming out of, whether it's the Flipkart universe or whether it's Amazon universe. So Mysuru has to select one of these areas and say, yes, let me start creating an ecosystem around this. So I'll be known for an X thing, like RTP, for example, North Carolina, things like that. So select what's good for you. Electronic manufacturing probably is one good area.
Good advice.
And I'll be known for this.
Okay, very good advice from all three of you. Before I open up for Q&A, I just want to say all of us at TiE in Mysuru, led by Sudhanva and Pavan and even youngsters like Harsha, lots of them, we want to build Silicon Mountain, as one of my younger TiE members in Mysuru mentioned the other day. So we are dedicated to building a TiE, Silicon Mysuru. Okay, with that, let me open it up for questions. There are a couple of questions in front of me. The first one is from Ratish, saying, does YC limit applications? Is there an age bar for people who want to apply to YC programs?
Absolutely not. We don't have an age bar at all. And we've admitted founders, we've admitted father-son founders, we've admitted solo founders.
So I still have hope of getting in.
Yes, we have no age limit.
Okay, that's good to know. And there's a question from Sabration. How structured is valuation they follow while investing and exiting a startup? Anybody can. Sabration is on the screen. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, because I have now, I'm a budding angel investor. Most of the companies that I go to invest, the valuation actually baffles me, because I come from a school where we have much more structured valuation, the traditional method of valuation, multiples of either EBITDA or those kind of discounted cash flow and all that. But many of the companies I see, they use gut feel to get a valuation done. So the pre-money and post-money, do all of you follow the same thing, or is there a more saner way of?
Yeah, I'll go there first, right? Because I guess at least in this panel, the earlier stage company where the valuation is definitely not sane, to your point. So no, there is. Honest answer is I don't think it is very structured, especially at early stage, because you don't have very strong foundational metrics to value a business. But what we do have is some very clear thumb rules that have evolved over time on what should the structure of the cap table be if it is a VC investable business. What should it be at pre-seed stage? What should it ideally be at seed stage? How much equity do you want to ensure that the founders have when they come to a Series A, and then later on at later stage rounds when Shyam and Anu will be looking at it, because you don't want to damage the capital table to a certain extent. Hence, at seed stage, at least at my stage, the focus is all on getting the amount of capital required right and the timing right. And then I think these thumb rules evolve what the valuation is.
Fair enough. I think we are close to a allotted time. Let me pick up one last question from Smita. It says, if you have a startup which is targeting a market where there are already existing competitors, but you have a better, more attractive business model, what does seed investors, what do they look for while funding such a startup? And if Smita is there, maybe she can elaborate on this question. So, yeah.
I would say, I actually strongly suggest that founders, especially in the early stages, not focus on competitors. Instead, really focus on the users of your product and ask why they're using your product, what do they love about it, and how can you find more of them. It's the number one mistake I see founders do, is to spend way too much time thinking about competition. I'm not saying be dismissive of them, but if you don't have any competitors today, just be sure you're going to get them. If you do well, there are going to be more competitors. So, competitors is part of your journey. Flattery, they help you raise your bar. But I think it's so important to keep your eye on the user. So if you feel your business model is better, then I'm assuming your customers are willing to pay for more for your offering, which is probably your product is better. And not losing sight of that and continuously building on what your users are saying is actually what's most important. And that's what a seed investor is typically looking for, which is what is the unique insight you have? Why do your customers love the product? And why are they willing to pay what they're paying for your product?
Thank you, Anu. On that note, let's bring this to a close. I would like to thank everyone, Shyam, Anu, and Rajiv, for a fascinating discussion. Thanks, everybody, and turn this back to Dr. Lokesh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this informative session. I'd like to thank the moderator, Amrish sir, and all the panel members for your valuable information with respect to incubation, acceleration, and skill. Thank you all. Now I invite Commander Abhiram Shripati, Chair, TiECon 2021, to detail about the next event carried out by Mr. Sharath Joyce, founder, Sharath Yoga Center, Mysuru. Now we'll be having a 5-side chat on Mysuru and Yoga, the story of symbiotic legacy. Now I request Commander Abhiram Shripati to moderate the event. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lokesh. A warm welcome to everybody. So after the wonderful session and the panel discussion which we've had on the entire journey of an enterprise, we're just taking some time out here, and let's look at the other side of the story where pure interest and pure talent and something to root Mysuru and something to be carrying on in terms of tradition is where this fireside chat comes in. I would like to introduce Mr. Sharath Joyce, who is the one of the foremost torchbearers in this in the yoga space, right? He's very young and his relentless service in yoga continues to this day, and I'm sure there's plenty much to hear from him. He teaches at a very high level. He teaches about more than 1,000 students a year from 100+ countries, which I think is a phenomenal achievement in itself, and something that is fantastic to just to hear and mind-blowing in itself. So let's begin, and I would like to probably ask Sharath Joyce to speak a little about himself, and then probably I'll start the questions and things like that.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Yeah. You all know that yoga and Mysore has a very big name across the world. I would like to say that this is because of all the hard work what my grandfather did in the past, setting up an institution in Mysore. So this is how it grew, like it went across the world, especially to America. This is how it started. I started my yoga practice when I was 7 years old, and I had lots of health issues when I was, as a child growing up. I had lots of health issues. I had tonsils, I had rheumatic fever, I almost died. I could not walk for 4 months. I was bedridden. So this is where I went back to yoga. So this is my introduction to yoga, which my grandfather gave the knowledge initially, going and assisting him. This is how it started. And there's lots of hard work also, like many years of practice. I got up every day around 2 o'clock in the morning and drove all the way from Gokulam to Lakshmipuram to learn yoga. This is how I started my yoga practice. This was like 1990s.
Wonderful, Mr. Sharath. Yoga has been a form of, I would say, I wouldn't call it exercise, but a form of physical activity which touches probably all planes in an individual who's practicing it, right? Right from the spiritual plane all the way to the physical plane. I would like probably Sharat to bring out the history of yoga and what form of particular yoga is being taught right out of Mysuru for the past, probably he's already, the grandson is already mentioned, right? So right from probably Mr. Patabi Joy's time all the way till you, Sharat.
So it all started in 1935 when Krishnamacharya, the biggest yoga guru, like father of yoga, say, and he was invited by Maharaja of Mysore, Nalgudi Krishna Rajavadi, to set up a yoga school in Mysore. So it started from there. There were lots of disciples of him, like my grandfather Patabi Joyce and B.K. Saingar. They were all his students. They started teaching. They started traveling to the West and teaching yoga there. So it had like a global connection, Mysore yoga, and had a global connection. But initially it started from, from Krishnamacharya, who was teaching in Jagan Mohana Palace. So then yoga was very new. Even many Indians did not practice yoga. Like they all had to go to the West. Always in Kannada we say that Shankadinda Bandre Tirtha, the holy water should come from the Kanch only. Then we consider it as a holy water. So it's like that, this is the fact, because always it should go to the West and come back. So they all ventured to the West, teaching their own style of yoga. This is how it started. At the same time, one thing what my grandfather did was he stayed in Mysore. He never left Mysore, and he attracted all these people. He made them come to Mysore and learn yoga. So this is one good thing. Like when we are traveling, even me when I travel, I always encourage everyone to come to Mysore and learn, because this is the source for, especially for Ashtanga Yoga, which my grandfather started. So this is how it's all started, and it's still going on.
That's wonderful. So how different is it from the other forms of yoga, right? The Ashtanga Yoga, and there are many other types where I think, of course, many things have been westernized now. But otherwise, from the traditional forms, when compared to the traditional forms of yoga, how different is it, the Ashtanga Yoga?
This comes from a tradition, like we call it as parampara. Parampara means it comes through a lineage. Mm-hmm. So it is not that I have created this. This has been practiced from many thousands of years, I would say. Like it all started from Krishnamacharya's guru was Rama Mohana Brahmachari, who lived in the Himalayas. So Krishnamacharya went there and learned from him. He stayed there for many years and learned, and he started spreading across India. So this is how it started. So this comes through a parampara. Nowadays, you see what yoga is. It's become more like an aerobic. I think it's not the traditional. There is no, we call it as, this is according to the Shastras. This is according to the manuscripts. So what we call as Ashtanga Yoga, which is world renowned now. Ashtanga Yoga is based on Hatha Yoga. So Hatha Yoga is the base for all this yoga. And, everybody has their own needs. Some just want physical exercise. Someone wants to go beyond that. So initially everyone starts yoga through asanas. So that is what attracts everyone to come and practice yoga. So in Ashtanga Yoga, it's as I told you, it's the traditional, it comes from a parampara. It has 8 steps or 8 limbs, we call Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So these 8 steps we teach, according to what level you are, what level of understanding you have. According to that, we teach. So it is all knowledge, not only physical asanas we do. It has its own lots of knowledge behind this. As I would say, this is a big science.
Wonderful. So, Sharath, you've been probably one of the key, some of the key or the instrumental in probably spreading yoga in countries like Japan, South Korea, especially the southeast or the eastern part of India, right? And of course, again, in Latin America, like Chile, Brazil, and all these places, right? So, how about you throw some, throw some light on your teaching experiences or the nuances of teaching yoga for especially people who do not understand Kannada or do not understand how difficult is it to converse, how difficult is it to still teach them this kind of an activity or the Ashtanga yoga, or the people who do not have an absolute Sanskrit background at all, right?
So let me tell you what happened. Like I was, I had many offers, I had many opportunities to settle down in US. They have granted me a special celebrity visa also. Still now I have that. I could have easily settled down in US. Since US is the place where my grandfather used to go a lot, and it was very big in the United States. Yoga was very big, especially Ashtanga Yoga. And in 1999, I taught Madonna in London. So I was traveling there. So then there was Madonna was practicing yoga, a big pop star, pop queen. And then many people wanted to practice Ashtanga Yoga. She was very instrumental in spreading Ashtanga Yoga at that time. So then I thought if I just live in US and teach there, my teachings will be limited to American students. It won't reach out to the world. So this is when I thought that I should travel and teach. So I started traveling to Japan, and I used to go to Hong Kong since China was very strict about yoga. It was difficult to do yoga there, to do conduct classes. So I went many times to Hong Kong. So many students used to come from all the Asian countries, like Philippines and Korea, Japan, all this. So this is where it started. All these people, they don't even speak English. Yoga doesn't have there is no language barrier for yoga. You can just teach them by sign language. It is like that, inhale, exhale. And then this is how and actually they are all very, very dedicated students. So this got spread like anything. Like now, when I went first time to Japan in 2005, we had only 30, 40 students. Now, when I go teach there, we have 800 up to 1,000 students practicing in one class. So this is how, they all have a connection also to Mysore. So whenever I go and teach there, they all follow me. They'll come back to Mysore and learn. So there is the bond between Mysore and yoga and all the students. Many of them, they do annual trips. It's like annual pilgrimage for many of them. They come and practice yoga here in Mysore. And Mysore is as you all know, it's the pleasant place. Yoga just happens like that. I don't know, it's not a very huge business place, not like Bangalore or anything, but it has its own charm, it has its own energy, which attracts many people to come to Mysore and practice. And they need a good teacher also.
I agree. So in a year, typically in about 365 days, how many days do you teach yoga, and what do you do during your non-teaching yoga time?
So when I'm teaching, I just dedicate myself. It will be for 3, 6 months, 7 months, continuously getting up in the morning at 1:30 and doing my own sadhana for 2-3 hours. And then I teach from 4:30 in the morning till 12 o'clock sometimes. It depends how many students I have. So it goes on. Sometimes I need to get away from everything, take some time. I need time off and go. At that time, I go to jungle, I do some wildlife photography, I go to Africa, I go to other places. So this is how, but main thing is I've devoted my entire time, life to yoga, that's all.
This is wonderful. So, in terms of institutionalizing the yoga culture or teaching yoga in Mysore, what are the other difficulties that you faced in the initial times when you had to institutionalize the entire yoga culture right out of Mysore?
See, it is first I have to learn this method properly. I mean, I should have proper knowledge about the subject. I would say subject, yoga subject. I need to have proper first I have to do my own sadhana. That I did for many years, like 25 years, 30 years. Still now I keep on practicing. I do my practice on this. This is one thing, and building a bond within your student, guru and shishya. We call it as Guru Shishya Parampara. Is not Guru Shishya Parampara means that's understanding the bond between a teacher and a student is very important, because they trust you. They come all the way to learn. They come all the way from their country to Mysore to learn. With all this difficulty, like they have to spend lots of money to come here. They have to spend time, all those things, and you have to give everything, whatever is possible in that limited time. You should give that to them. That was exactly what I did. Like building a bond between student, and they feel very safe in Mysore, and they learn a lot in Mysore. This is what has taken this far. Like now, almost more than 100 countries. I have students from more than 100 countries. Most of them, they come every year to learn. So,
well, that's wonderful to know. All of us being entrepreneurs here, could you throw some light on how we should probably carve out time for yoga, and what would be the ideal times, or the amount of time or the amount of asanas one should probably practice to keep ourselves up to shape, and to keep ourselves at the top of our thinking ability?
First thing, I think everyone should practice yoga before, whoever, everyone should practice yoga, and they all make their employees, everyone who are working for them, to do practice yoga. So first, I think what you should start your day with yogasana practice. Maybe in your group or in your company, everyone should get together and practice yoga. That is how you should start. You should have a yoga teacher. This will freshen up your mind also. It makes you more active, and it gives all the, first it will give you good health, and then it gives you peace of mind. It will make you work, you can work better in your whatever you're doing. So you should include, yoga should be part of your daily schedule, daily thing. Whatever you do in early mornings, you should start practicing yoga. But early mornings is better because your mind is very fresh before you interact with other people. It is always better you do your own sadhana, your own practice. So every corporate, they should include yoga in that. Like now in Infosys, they have a yoga class which goes on, and anyone can take. Whoever is working for Infosys can go and take yoga classes. It should be like that. Then only it has lots of other benefits also. Like sometimes you have to take decisions, like very difficult decisions, and where you have to take. So at that time, you can peacefully sit calmly and think what to do, and it will help you to take right decisions. Many of you have lots of big, you have a big corporate, you have big businesses. So at that time, you need to think, you need to have a mind which is very stable to take right decisions. I think at that time, this yoga will help you to stabilize your mind. So it is very important that each and everyone should practice yoga. Just basic yoga. I don't say you have to do like advanced postures, putting leg behind the head or doing Shirshasana, all those things. There are few simple asanas like breathing techniques, Surya Namaskara. These asanas are really good to keep you stable physically and mentally.
Great. And other than practicing yoga and wildlife, I do know you have written a book on yoga. Could you please highlight on that, Sharad?
So I wrote 2 books. One is like a practice manual. It's called Ashtanga Yoga Anushtana. To understand that book, you need to practice yoga with a certified or authorized teacher, certified from us. So I wrote another book just for general public. Anyone can read that. It is about the lifestyle we should lead, like a healthy lifestyle. And there are many tips which I have given to, like the main thing in that book is how you should balance your life in a daily life. A day, how much you have to eat, how much you have to sleep, how much you have to work. These are very important. So I've spoken about that in that book. So it has helped many people because I get good comments, and we have sold, I don't know how many copies, maybe 35,000 or 40,000 copies till now. It is called as Yogi's Secret. So that is a nice book for everyone to read and just to balance their life, daily life.
Wonderful. Sharad, what are the research areas? I know you're contributing a lot in the research area to just like, companies who have their dedicated R&D department. I know there are many research areas in yoga too. What are the research areas presently that are ongoing in yoga, and how are you contributing, and how is Mysuru related to this very niche aspect?
So if you understand our yoga, it is divided into three parts, especially the asana part of it. It is divided into 3. One is called as Chikitsa Vibhaga. Chikitsa Vibhaga means to cure diseases. So another one is Nadi Shodhana, which is little more advanced, and third one is Sthira Bhaga. Sthira Bhaga means it's more advanced, very advanced postures, which is not for therapy. So we have this Chikitsa Vibhaga, which we use mostly for therapeutical purpose. So if someone has, for example, if they have breathing problems, many people have cured, who have breathing problems. We teach them basic asanas, and this is what, when I say this is a traditional practice, that means this is called as Vinyasa Yoga. So Vinyasa Yoga is not only postures, it has breathing techniques also, which we include in our posture. So it is like coordination between posture and the breath. So this is what we teach. So when we do that, many breathing problems can be cured. So like that, many people, they come with lower back pain, they come with other issues, like some people have severe headache, some people have insomnia, they have allergies to many things like dust allergy, plant allergies. So we teach them basic asanas and then teach them these breathing techniques. So it depends on the student also. We have to understand the student, what is good for them. We have to teach that. We cannot teach whatever we want. If you see other styles of yoga, they teach you 10 asanas at once without understanding someone's body, their flexibilities, all those things. This is a slow process that even Shastra says, Satu Dirga Kala, Nairantarya, Satkara Adra Semito, Durga Bhumihi. Patanjali Yoga Sutra says yoga is not instant. Like you cannot go to a teacher and do a 1-month course and get a certificate. You won't become a teacher. You have to understand the students' body, even their mind, their attitude, all these things are very important to understand. Then only we can teach them. So that is how we should work on each and every student. So like that, when there are health issues, I get students who have mental issues also. Like, it's not just physical, just mental issues also. So those students we have to handle carefully and try to help them with whatever knowledge I know, like through my experience. We put it to them, and it's helped a lot for many people.
What about the research areas, Sharath?
The research area means there is two research. Research is one thing which I told you now. These asanas, what we do, how it helps you to each and every asana works on your body. Like if you have respiratory problems, there are a set of asanas which will help you. If you have lower back pain, there is a set of asanas that you have to do. So these kind of research in asana is there. Another part of research is to bring back all the ancient knowledge which is there in the book. Like we do lots of research on Upanishads, we do research on Bhagavad Gita, various other writings of Shankaracharya. So there are many knowledge in that, and we try to bring those knowledge and try to teach it to our student. This is one research we also do. So nowadays, it's become more physical. If you see yoga, it's become very physical. They teach you like just to do asanas without any shastra in that. And there is the ancient knowledge is not there. So how to bring back those knowledge, that we have to do research and bring it from Upanishads, all this ancient text we have. So this is one big research which we are also doing, and we are doing some research in UVA also, University of Virginia, where we are monitoring, we are seeing, we are bringing people who have different issues like health issues, mental issues, and try to teach them yoga and see how it helps them to get rid of all these problems.
I mean, it's been very enlightening to speak to a personality like you, who has carried on the legacy of yoga for times to come, and also I'm sure it will be. The future looks very bright, especially the fact that yoga is influential for someone's personality at various levels, at whatever age, at whatever time, and whatever phase of life someone starts yoga and continues and sustains yoga for sure. Sharath, one last, I would like to probably ask you, what is your take as an entrepreneur in this particular field? I mean, rarely you find yogis who are entrepreneurs also.
I don't consider myself an entrepreneur. I just do what I know, that's all. I just share my knowledge, and then it is just growing like that, that's all. It's also like helping many people in Gokulam, in around Mysore, with many like even auto people or housemates there. It's all helping each and everyone, people who are renting their houses. It's bringing good income for them. They're all dependent on this foreigners who come from different parts of the world to learn yoga. So it is like a seva also. Like I'm not good at business, but it just happens. It comes. That's all. And then
wonderful.
My work should be like a seva also. It should help others also.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, I'm sure you're impacting many people's lives, Sharath. So we have one question, and we probably have, we need to close in about a minute or two. Most Japanese companies, they go through exercise sessions for about 5 to 10 minutes twice during break times in a day to keep themselves energetic. Can this be replaced with probably yogic exercises during the day, during the break times to relieve oneself of stress, or are there specific asanas for this?
So yeah, definitely. Sometimes you are stressed out with your work. In between, you can take breaks like half an hour, 1 hour, which they do. As you told, they do in many offices in many corporates, where they take break for half an hour, 1 hour. Even if you go to Google, in California, they all have a break in between. I was invited there, so I went and saw that everyone takes a break in between, and they go to a room and they just do some small breathing exercises, which makes them really energetic, and they come back with a fresh mind. So it is very important for each, everyone to take a break in between, and this just to get energized again to work. It's very important.
I mean, it's been wonderful having a chat with you, Sharad, and I'm sure the participants have benefited with whatever insights you have brought out, and of course it's been a delight to me personally to have a chat with you and bring out the personality or the other side of yoga also from your side. Thank you so much for your time. I'd not like to take too much of time from here. Over to you, Professor Lokesh. We don't have any more questions. I don't see any more questions right now. Thank you so much for your contribution to yoga and Mysuru, Sharad. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sharad Joyce, for highlighting about a symbiotic legacy of Mysuru and yoga. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank Commander Abhiram Shipati for the moderation. Thank you, sir. I would like to call upon Mr. Bhaskar Kalale, the charter member, TiE Mysuru, to initiate the next event, that is Organic Chat with Madhu Chandan, farmer and the founder, Organic Mandya. I request Mr. Bhaskar Kalale to moderate the event. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Lokesh. It's a pleasure to be introducing our next speaker. And again, welcome to everybody to TiECon 2021, Mysuru.local. It's been a pleasure hearing all of the speakers so far. And then I'm pretty sure that the next one is going to be equally enchanting and equally interesting as well. So just before I introduce, I just want to say that when a commercial enterprise is born out of idealism and with the desire to help a community at large, it becomes successful. It takes the shape of people's movement, like the one that we've seen in Gujarat, which is everybody knows as Amul. And how many times does one get to see a Silicon Valley entrepreneur coming back to rediscover his or her roots and start an entrepreneurial journey right from the soil that they actually grew up in, not only creating a profitable and thriving enterprise, but also transforming the lives of thousands of farmers. It's a very, very rare achievement, what BVJ earlier mentioned as a social enterprise. Let me have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker with whom I'll be interacting. It's Madhu Chandan, who is the founder of Organic Mandya, and he's the what we typically call Mannina Maga, or son of the soil. Exactly what I just described, which has been an entrepreneur, spent close to 15 odd years outside of India in various countries, and then finally came back to his roots. Madhu founded and ran his own software company called Verifier Corporation back in California, and used to come to Bangalore often, where his company's R&D center was located. On those trips, he noticed the problem of migration of youngsters from rural towns to Bangalore because they had no predictable and sustainable income in agriculture. This got him thinking on the problems farmers were facing for decades and dared to dream a different future, not only for himself, but one that would also benefit thousands of farmers, not only in his hometown, but across the state and hopefully across the country. Soon enough, he convinced his family and moved back from the US to his roots, which is Mandya. Thus was born Organic Mandya, a rural enterprise with 25 crores turnover and 8 retail outlets that most travelers between Mysore and Bangalore would have definitely seen near Maddur for sure. Organic Mandya is now a family of 12,000 plus farmers under the cooperative society that Madhu formed, 7,000 plus farmers in 300 plus organic farmers clubs spread across 270 villages, and 4,500 women members, farmers come micro entrepreneurs across 200 villages. Recognizing his achievements in agriculture, the central government nominated him as a management committee member of the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, ICAR. Madhu did his engineering in electronics and communication from University of Mysore. He is a huge fan of Kabaddi, just the way I know lots of people from Mandya are also fan of Kabaddi. I know quite a few people from Mandya who love Kabaddi. And to revive the magic of this magnificent game and fill the youth of Mandya with sportsmanship and full-on zest, he has formed 60 plus Kabaddi youth team across Mandya district. Let's talk more and hear directly from Madhu. So Madhu, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I appreciate your time and I hope I can call you Madhu.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Bhaskar. Nice meeting you and nice meeting you all.
Thank you. So let's start with your journey of coming back to India. 5 or 8 years ago, I believe 2015 is when you formed Organic Mandya. But before we get to how this idea came to be, as a business idea, how was moving back to India at that time?
Actually, we had a office in the US, San Jose. And we had a R&D center back in Bangalore. So I was the CTO of the company, and I was heading the product development in our company. So our R&D office was back in Bangalore. So I used to come to Bangalore very frequently. So whenever I visited Bangalore, I used to move around in auto rickshaws. So I started talking to the drivers, auto rickshaw drivers. They used to tell me that they are all from Mandya, and most of them, 90% of them had lands back in their villages. So they could not succeed in agriculture. They were not seeing any money. That's why they had migrated to Bangalore, and they were all riding the auto rickshaws. Apart from it, wherever you go, I saw a lot of youngsters working in restaurants, bar, especially guys from Mandya, and most of the women, they worked as maids and in garments. And elderly farmers, even some of them had migrated, and they were working as security guards in apartments and ATMs. So this kind of when I was saying Mandya was one of the richest district, it had a lot of wealth. People were wealthy and wealthy. That's what I had seen Mandya back then during my childhood days. But when I saw this situation, repeatedly I saw this migration of youths, even though they had large acres of land, 3, 4, 5 acres. Even a guy who had 10 acres was riding auto rickshaw in Bangalore. So that made me think. I was born in Mandya with a reason. So when I grew up, my surrounding, my district has given me knowledge. It has taught me everything. But after studying, and then what am I giving back to my people? That started resonating in my mind. So that's when I did not want to grow old and come back and again depend on my society back in Mandya. I wanted to do something to reverse the migration. So that's why I thought, let me stop. What I've done enough to myself and to my family. So let me come back and assess the situation. I took a decision and I came back without any plan. My only goal was to bring back youths back into agriculture and revive the economy of our district. That's how I came back.
Thank you. So you yourself is an example of reverse migration. You went abroad and came back to India, and now you're trying to help people who have moved out of their respective cities and the districts out to the urban areas and bringing them back. That's a great story. Now, did you have background in farming that actually made you more comfortable of getting into a business of this kind, or how did you just go about it?
I did not even know about organic. I did not know about organic nor farming nor agriculture, because my grandparents used to be farmers, but my dad was a scientist, agriculture scientist. He was in GKVK. He was a vice chancellor there. So I was never exposed. I was exposed to theoretical agriculture, but not practical agriculture. So when I came back, I started researching the reverse migration problem. I found out like farmer suicides were happening. That's when I found out the health was deteriorating. The people, whatever, then earlier they used to live for about 90, 100 years. Now the situation is lifespan has decreased by 30 years. Wealth has decreased. People are migrating. So when I saw all these problems, then I thought, how did my grandparents live? How did the society then live? That's when this idea of going back and living their lifestyle. Like in earlier days, they used to do organic farming. They had health. Their expenses was low. They had wealth because of low expenses, and health because of chemical-free farming. So that's how this idea of organic farming came into my mind. I had a land in Mandya. I started practicing myself. I took my friend's help. I myself started plowing, doing all the hard work. So that practical exposure gave me a lot of insights, and that's how I learned agriculture. And still, I'm learning. It's not that I've learned and still I'm learning. It's a lifelong learning process.
So after coming back, having spent so much of time outside of Mandya, for example, and then did you have trouble relating to other people in your city or in your district in terms of convincing them to adopt organic farming?
See, that's the one question I get from everyone. Were you able to convince? See, what happens is we go to villages straight away. We have not worked. We don't have any agriculture experience, and we try to convince a person who has seen 40 summers, 40 winters, and 40 monsoons. We have never done that, but we have read a lot about it, and we try to go and try to impart theory to them. When myself started practicing, I could learn a lot of things, and they all knew me because I was a practicing farmer, and I was doing very well in farming. So they could relate that, and I started becoming one. So they took me in because I was one among them. So they started accepting my whatever I used to say. They started accepting with all art.
So how long did it take for you to convince them, or how long did it take for them to realize that what you were doing was actually something that was worthwhile to do?
See, it did not take much time for me, because what I was talking was what their fathers or forefathers used to do. I did not bring any technology from US. It was all their fathers and forefathers used to do. They started telling me that, yes, sir, my father was doing it this way. My father did not have any loans. He lived 90 years. So they started connecting to their ancestors. And it was pretty, for me, it was pretty easy because I connected with them and they connected with their fathers and forefathers.
So another question, Madhu, I have is, many of the, or most of the VC companies or people who fund other companies, they say that before you get into a business, you should do a market analysis. Who are the people that you would be selling to, and what's the size of the market in terms of rupees, etc. Did you do any of those, or you just believed in your gut and you just plunged into it?
Yes, I did. I did that in my software company, but I did not do any of those in my agriculture venture. I did it with my art. I did it for the society. So when whatever you said, I incorporated in my software company, which there it almost took us 4 years to achieve 1 crore revenue. When I did it from my art for the society, it took only 4 months for us to achieve 1 CR. So that's the biggest lesson I've learned. Whatever you do, do it with love, passion, and compassion for the society. Definitely will succeed. That's what I learned.
Have you raised any funds, external funds, Madhu?
Yeah, we have raised external funds to expand our operations. We have done it. Recently, we raised external funds from Zerodha.
Okay. But as a seed capital, everything came from your own self.
No, me and my four of my friends, we came together. Most of them were IT engineers. So we raised our own seed capital for about once a year, and we started.
Got it. So a couple of other questions, Madhu, is one is what I've read is that even though you may be doing organic farming in your own land, but unless the surrounding land is also adopting organic methods of farming, the fertilizer that is used in the surrounding land could potentially percolate down into your soil, and therefore your organic food may not be as organic as one might claim. How much truth is there to that?
That's not true. It's very it's like, see, if somebody is smoking next to you, does it mean that you are a smoker? No, right? So some traces might be there, but it doesn't mean that you are a smoker. So a little bit here and there might come, but in that large this thing, that doesn't really affect. And it all depends whether you are you using the water from his land after he uses, are you using it from him, or are you using a bore, or are you using a canal water directly? There are so many possibilities in that.
Got it. So how do you ensure the quality of the organicness, if I may call that, from the farmers that you procure? So do you have some kind of a qualification process that you go through for all these farmers to be part of your cooperative society?
Yeah, we have very stringent rules in the quality, especially if the farmers fail, we don't procure. Even though if we don't have stock in our stores, it's still okay with us. Even though we keep on losing on that item, we still don't procure. What we do is we have field assistants who go and visit the field. We do random testing at the field level itself. Once the product arrives to our warehouse, we do chemical resist testing. That's a must. If we have certain parameters for each and every product, those has to be met stringently. Then only we move forward.
Nice. How many people are there in your company now?
Close to 200, 300. I don't look into operations. There between 200 to 300.
And I believe you're also looking at building a similar cooperative society for organic farming in Mysore. How is that coming along?
No, I don't want to build a cooperative societies. Cooperative society is a mess. It's a nice story, but in practicality, I don't suggest anyone to get into cooperative this thing. Because in cooperative sector, there is a government saying the elections happens every 5 years. There is too much of fuss. Once the money is in the account, too many people come into picture. So I don't want to do any cooperative farming. Now what we are trying to do is we are trying to do FPOs, Farmer Produce Organization, which will be registered under section ROC, Register of Companies. So I think that's the better format if you want to involve all the farmers and take them along. We did cooperative society initially, but later we limited the number of farmers there, and we formed a private limited by investing money, and we formed it as a marketing platform. Cooperative society, we have kept it as a training platform and a servicing platform for the farmers.
Got it. So where all do you procure it from, and how do you manage that supply chain? Is it only primarily procurement from the farmers in Mandya district, or from other places also?
No, we procure each and every district has its own unique products. For example, from Mandya, we do ragi, some of the millets, jaggery. From Priyapatna, we source desi milk, and we ghee and all is from Priyapatna. Our the grapes, dry grapes, dry fruits. They come from Kashmir. Saffron comes from Kashmir. Some of the items comes from Himachal. Turmeric comes from Meghalaya. So we source best of the products from the best organic farmers across the country. Some of the millets come from Andhra Pradesh, and from Maharashtra we get wheat and sometimes grapes from Nagpur. So we procure across the country. It's not only Mandi, across the country.
So does your business model based on all company-owned retail stores, or is it also on a franchise basis?
It's all company-owned retail store. We have one franchise. Rest of them is company-owned, and that's how we like to be.
Okay, so you don't want to grow it through franchisee model. So you would continue to be
franchise is again. We tried franchise model 4 years ago. We gave 4 franchises, but you know how people are when it comes to business. They did not maintain the purity of what we think. That's why we cancelled all the franchises, and we don't want to take that route. Okay. We are not worried of growing big in 3 years, 4 years. We want to protect the quality, and if we grow slow also, it's fine.
Right. So that actually is a good way to segue into the next question that I had. What is your plan for Organic Mandia? What is your vision, Madhu?
So our vision is we want to serve more farmers. We want to improve their economic status. It's not, I'm not talking about doubling their income. We want to bring back their sustainable living lifestyle, what our forefathers used to do. We want to train them. We want to add more and more farmers to the sustainable livelihood. And as and when we start adding more farmers, we want to expand our businesses into other cities in India.
And have you seen when people move from, let's say, fertilizer-based farming to organic, mode of farming? Have you seen any improvement in, let's say, yield of the crops, or is it a deterioration or a reduction in? How do you see? Because typically fertilizers is used to boost your yield, right? So, or have your experience is something different?
It's very. I'll give you. I'll ask you another question. Probably you will be able to answer that. So, if a person is on, if a person is a drug addict, and if you ask him to stop taking drugs, so what will happen to that person?
Withdrawal symptoms.
So withdrawal symptoms will be there for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Then after 3rd month, what will happen? He will become better and better and better. And one fine day, he'll be the best. And he will start producing 3 times, 4 times of what he was doing when he was on drugs. So it's the same thing applies to plants. Even though they are like us, the same thing applies to them.
Nice. That's a nice way to put it. I'll just pause for a minute and see if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I have maybe just one last question before we, wrap up. So one last question from me, Madhu, is how do you measure your success? Because you've mentioned that you've been working with farmers to improve their lives. But the other side of it is you're also maybe unknowingly helping improve lives of thousands of other people who are consuming your products, right? So on one side is the economic benefit to the farmers, on the other side is the health benefit to the consumers of your product. So given these two, could potentially be contradictory, if you will, but not necessarily. How do you see your success in both as a personal success as well as a company success? You're on mute, Madhu.
If you had asked me this question when I was in a software, my answer would have been, I want my company to be 1,000 crore company or $100 million company or something that. But here, I've dedicated my life for this upliftment of the farmers. So if more and more farmers are happy, if they come under our belt, and if they adopt, and if they get that income and health, I'm the most happiest person. For me, I'm not behind any numbers for the company. I'm behind the number of farmers who will come into our belt. At the same time, number of consumers will consume and improve their health. So that is what makes me happy and keeps me satisfied.
Right. There is one question. It says, are you planning to introduce any organic manure in your products?
We have organic manure, compost. This is we sell it for urban crowd who are not able to produce any manure by themselves. So vermicompost is what we sell in our store in small quantities. We don't sell any fertilizers to our farmers, and we don't recommend, because what we are teaching is sustainable farming. They have to produce their own fertilizer, they have to produce their own seeds, they have to produce everything. So only for urban crowd who have kitchen gardens or terrace gardens, for them we sell small quantity of fertilizers.
Okay. There is one other quick question. How many other farming communities across India have you been able to influence?
I have influenced. We have Organic Mandi has influenced many farmers across the country, and I have seen people writing to us telling that I am in Dubai, I am a CFO, I am a CTO. Now I am back in Kerala, I am back in Tamil Nadu, I am doing farming. So many people have come back. There have been many movies which has been shot on Organic Mandia's story. There was a famous movie in Telugu which was shot on Organic Mandia. We have influenced a lot of people across India. A lot of youths who were working in software field have come back to their villages, and they have started farming.
So one other thing is, I was just thinking, you just talked about the manure. Do you see there is a business opportunity for any young entrepreneur to take that up, go to even deeper rural areas and start collecting that manure and sell it as a business? Do you see that as an opportunity for someone?
No, not really. See, we should always try to protect annadatas. Farmers, we should not sell them. We should enable them to produce. We should enable them to produce better seeds, make their own pest control systems. If we start selling to them, again, we are trying to snatch their income. This is what has happened in the last 40 years. Universities have sold them or told them to buy from here or from there, but universities have done a lot of research, but they have never ever told farmers how to produce things on their own. So this is my stand. Farmers, we should buy from them. They are the producers. They are not consumers. If they become consumers, then there will be a problem for the farmer and for the villages. India is made of 6.5 lakh villages. If we don't protect them, the country will be in bad shape.
Well, that's a wonderful story, Madhu. It's a pleasure having you and listening to your story. All the best to you and to your team. You're doing a very great job. It's a very noble cause of building a social enterprise. And I'm pretty sure not only us, current generation, but generations to come will thank people like yourself for not only saving our farmers, from suicides. And what I was reading earlier was that Mandya district had one of the highest farmer suicide rates in Karnataka till about 3 years ago or so. And I'm hoping that your efforts will actually make Mandya a zero farmer suicide district in the days to come and years to come. All the best to you. And we hope to have you again and hopefully meet in person and hear your amazing story a lot more in detail. Thank you very much. And
Thank Thank you, Mr. Madhuchandan, for joining with us for the quick chat on organic farming. And I'd like to thank Mr. Bhaskar Kalale for the moderation. Thank you. I would like to call upon Mr. Prajakta Kutnikar, Associate Member, TiE Mysuru, to initiate the closing keynote address on the less trodden path, the journey of an entrepreneur by Dr. Chaitra Harsha, MD, Viprajan Biosciences, Mysuru. Now I request Mr. Prajakta Kutnikar to take over the session, to introduce Dr. Chaitra Harsha. Over to you, ma'am. Now you are muted.
Thank you, Dr. Lokesh. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to introduce the woman entrepreneur, Dr. Chaitra Harsha, Managing Director, Viprajan Biosciences Private Limited. Dr. Chaitra Harsha was recognized the Woman Entrepreneur of 2018 by Government of Karnataka. A prolific entrepreneur, she has built and nurtured many startups. A medical graduate with MBBS degree from Bangalore, PhD from IISc, Bangalore, and completed her management program for women entrepreneurs at the famed NS Raghavan Cell for Entrepreneurship at IIM Bangalore. She is a MD of Viprajan, a leading contract research organization in the biotech and pharma industry. Viprajan has top-notch infrastructure in Mysore with 13,000 square feet of international standard animal research facility with 34 member scientific team that includes 7 PhD holders. Dr. Chaitra is involved in several other organizations and startups. She is a chairman and chief mentor, Blossom Groups of Hospital, Bangalore. She is founder and managing director of Gene Dynamics that provides bioconsulting services. She is a founder director of Advina Health, a niche organization catering to medical tourism. She is founder of Smile Launch Cosmetic Dental Chain, a cosmetic dentistry chain at Bangalore. Dr. Chaitra, Gene Dynamics was featured in the book A Tryst with Women Entrepreneurs, published by IIM Bangalore. She is a role model for budding entrepreneurs. She has 8 acclaimed scientific publications in renowned international science journal. Dr. Chaitra is also a charter member at TiE Bangalore chapter. Dr. Chaitra is an avid wildlife photographer and does her bit towards sustainable conservation efforts. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Lokesh.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful introduction of Dr. Chaitra Harsha. Now I call upon Dr. Chaitra Harsha to brief us about the lesson trodden path, journey of a entrepreneur. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for such a nice introduction. I should actually appreciate whoever has put my talk at the end. So only if one has not done yoga and one who has not followed organic, eating habits, then you will end up with a doctor, right? So jokes apart, yes, this is a kind of a journey which didn't, from a doctor to entrepreneur didn't happen overnight. So I would like to share a story of my journey from becoming a doctor to entrepreneur. I hope I don't bore you with that. So there are 2 parts to it. How I became an entrepreneur. Like a middle class family where parents give you only 2 options, as if in world there are only 2 options for you. One is to become a doctor or a engineer. So coming from that kind of a generation where we were not in a position to decide anything, I just chose medicine. But medicine was not really, what I really wanted to do, or not because I didn't choose it, basically. So, but I did justice to it. I had a good tenure of 4.5 years of medicine. So it happened that one of the days, because I'm a nature lover, so I ended up in Tata Institute. So not knowing anything further, I fell in love with the campus. So I actually went with a friend of mine. So I said, I told my friend, if somebody offer me something out here, I would probably settle down here. It's such a beautiful campus. So we just were literally trespassing, just looking at different departments. I could see microbiology, biochemistry, I mean, none of them were quite interesting to us, but ended the last department I could see was genetics. I being quite curious, I said I just want to just see what is there in genetics, because I'm talking something about almost 20 years back. So I was quite curious, and genetics was something hot topic. So I said I tried to, and I see there are long doors and which were closed, and I tried to peep in and see what is there. And I see a list of the professors list there, and in that it's somebody's one of the professors' name was against human genetics. I said, wow, interesting. I need to know what is human genetics. So I knocked the door and I pressed the bell there so that somebody would come out. And I turned back and see my friend has disappeared, who's also who was my batchmate, basically. So I entered. The professor was more than willing to talk to me about his projects. So that was a kind of a turning point for me. In the sense, I backed a project with him. Being a medical student, he was looking for someone who would get him some samples on one of the hereditary diseases that he was working on. And I said, I want to do it. It sounds interesting. So I said, I took my two-wheeler. I was used to drive when after the college. I used to get samples, and then he allowed me to look into what he does with those samples, and it was fascinating. So that, as I said, that was a turning point for me. Then I decided that let me really, I mean, I was not really enjoying medicine as such. So from applied science, let me shift over to the basic science, which seemed to be really fascinating, and I was quite interested in. So against all odds, you can say, because literally my parents disowned me and said, why are you getting into a PhD? You've already spent 5.5 years in medicine, and you're looking at something in medicine, PhD. That is the norm, right? Once you become a doctor, you practice and you don't really digress from the field. So then the journey went on. I did spend about 6.5 years there. It was a beautiful part of my life. One was that it was the beautiful campus, as I said, and also something I worked on, vaccine designing for tuberculosis. And being a doctor, I could connect it to some of even the patients, which usually researchers don't do. So that was a wonderful time. So by then I had decided, okay, I have a couple of ideas. I need to do something on my own. So what do I do? Like a naive person, I thought going to a B school would definitely give me an idea how to do business. So I ended up with the management program at IIMB. I realized it later that that is not enough. And typically, like in any B school, you end up doing a project plan. And I did a project plan, which came up to about 5 crores. Okay, I said, no way, I'm not going to. I mean, I couldn't cut down on anything. I said, maybe I was not experienced. So I said, 5 crore, where am I going to get 5 crore? So then I said, no, I'm not going to stop here. I need to get into the business to understand and get going with my ideas. So that's wherein I did enter into the healthcare, and I started a dental chain. Very unlike I'm not a dental doctor or I'm not a dentist, but it happened that I invested. I wanted to get into the business, basically. So to understand what it is, why should I mean, how am I going to do a biotech project? So that was quite an experience. As VV Jagdish said, you need to wear different hats, right? So I became a salesperson. I became an interior designer. I became a marketing person. It was quite interesting. I did 2 branches, and investment was about 10 lakh, and I got a I got a good offer from an Arab doctor because we were doing medical tourism. So Arab doctor said, I'm going to pay 25 lakh. Would you, are you interested to sell it? I said, I gave it. I said, I sold it and I exited from that business. There were two reasons why I exited. One was, that was not my forte, you know, cosmetic dentistry was not my forte, and really wanted to chase what I want, you know, I had dreamt of. So that was the main reason I came out, and I was not very successful there. So soon I realized, or soon I got to know that within a week after I exited, the Narayana Hrudayalas, you know, they had set up 40-45 clinics. Their valuation ended up at 200 crore, and they were exiting. I said, wow, I mean, maybe I got 25 lakh, but still okay. I kind of been there in the right business probably. So that's when there were a few years wherein I did struggle, and you know, did a couple of other projects, and then because the capital was I was thinking that capital is an issue, but that was not the case. So that's wherein the story of Mysore comes in. I'm not a Mysurean by birth, but Mysore chose me, in fact, because one of my seniors from Indian Institute of Science had started, Dr. Chandrasekhar had started Viprajan Biosciences in Mysore as a service partner to a US company. So there was, the business model was quite weak. It was only for services to, you know, only one client. So he was looking for a partner. He said, why don't you join me? I asked him, so there's no need for me to get funds, right? So that's how I can jump in only if you say that I don't have to get funds or money into it. He said, yes, absolutely. You just have to come, and you know, you have to start looking at how the whole business model looks. So that was a starting point for me as an entrepreneur. So we started, I took over the team, and from about 10 members. So we are today, you know, more than 40. Viprajan Biosciences, so it was started in Mysore. So we stuck to Mysore. We have not moved out of Mysore. And we are a contract research organization wherein we do services to other pharma companies. For people who do not know much about biotechnology, it is a kind of developing, you know, animal models and doing research on the newer drugs, or maybe the existing drugs where they get repurposed. So these drugs get tested for their toxicity and you know, the efficacy or the effectiveness of these drugs in a lot of extra, you know, cell platforms. It could be, or you know, it could be animal models. So we develop, so our team develops that, and slowly over time, me and my partner, that is Dr. Chandrasekhar, we changed the business model a little bit and said service will not be able to scale up much. So we did bring in you know, the asset development or the R&D part. So over last 5 years, we have built a pipeline of 5 molecules where, you know, along with the National University of Singapore, you know, JNCSR in Bangalore, so some of the premier institutes, and, you know, out of them, 3 molecules are already in the process of patenting. So that is my story, how I became a Mysurean. So I really connect very well. And if you ask me, if you wanted to do any other way, no, because many a times we also thought, why Mysore? You know, should we really move out? Over the process, over the time, we also thought about moving to Bangalore. But then when we looked back at our own business model, it really doesn't require that we need to be in Bangalore, except because we are not a tech company, one, and as you know, Rajiv was mentioning that we have a very good education institutes, and for human resource, there is no issue at all. And there are a lot of advantages, I would say. For people, I don't have to spend more time to keep my my clients who come for auditing from different places, across the world, in good space. They actually, it is one is business plus a leisure. So there's definitely an advantage in Mysore. Yes, we did. There were a lot of bottlenecks that we had to work on. Some of the accreditations, we are about, there are about 40 plus companies across India who are doing similar work. So we had to differentiate, and that's wherein we have brought in some of the molecules, and we are doing R&D. We've been quite successful also in raising funds. Yes, this was a struggle, but it is not the only way to success. We've been funded by different investors, and also Karnataka government Kitwen Fund has funded our company. So this is my story of Viprajan. Yes, so if you ask me, you want to do it any other way? Would I want to be continue as a doctor? No, I enjoy every moment and every step that we have taken. Not that failures were not there. The failures are the one who have taught us how to go about what not to do and what to do. So that's why I said this story would be interesting, because I didn't become an entrepreneur overnight. If you ask what an entrepreneur needs is, if you look back at the story, you will get those points. I was quite curious. You need to be really passionate about things. You need to really plan things, and you have to jump into you have to test the waters. Then only you will learn anything or everything that for an entrepreneur. And one needs to be really flexible. As I said, when we started Viprajan, the business model was different, but soon we realized that we need to really work on our business model, which is workable. And it is not about all the time it is about money, but it's all about sustainable business model. So we were flexible enough to shift our business model and tweak it a little bit. So what if you ask me why it is called a less tread path? It is only in India, I would say, that it is a less tread path for a doctor to become an entrepreneur. Yes, times are changing. A lot of doctors are, have that appetite for risk. It is not about just making money as a doctor, right? So in India, the perception is that, okay, a doctor is always need to practice and be there. That's it. But if you look at abroad, if you look at US, what happens is a doctor is the one who does the basic research also, because doctor knows, because he's on the applying, any science part or any research part, he or she is on the, application part of, or the clinical side, you can say. So for an entrepreneur or in this field, in science or biotechnology, it is always a challenge, where if you really need that perspective, the clinical perspective of it. So a doctor, if he's an entrepreneur or who's into basic science and doing a little bit of research and then applying in his own clinical practice, there's nothing like it. But ironically, it is not so. So I wouldn't say it's a less tread path. I think the times are changing. A lot of doctors are becoming entrepreneurs. It is only about the mindset, mindset of the people that I have chosen. See, no more of the days when, as I said, the doctor or engineer is the only way forward. There are much more exciting stories that you get to hear. So if you ask me, what being a woman entrepreneur, I would definitely want to add a point here, because I've been extensively working with women entrepreneurs. I only see that there is no difference between a woman entrepreneur or a male entrepreneur. It is about the mindset. If you look at my own team, most of them, more than 80% of the PhDs and the intellects that we have, they're all old or elder to me, right? But still, we are able to pull through because it is about the conviction. It is about your how passionate you are about it. Then things will fall into place. So for a woman entrepreneur, I don't think it is, as I said, it is only the attitude and the mindset of them that they have to come out, and then there is no stopping, right? So this is my story. I hope that story was interesting and at least inspired few of them. I would say not to choose just becoming doctors, but there are many more areas, arenas. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chaitra, for briefing about the Doctor Entrepreneur. Thank you. With this, we have come to the end of the session, which is very much inspiring entrepreneurial saga. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that highest appreciation is not uttered in words, but it lives within them. Jonathan Fred said so. Now I'd like to call upon our student member, Ms. Sampanna MN, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Sampanna.
Hello everyone. I'm Sampanna MN, student member, TiE from TiE Mysuru. We are really glad to have you all here with us today. It's an honor to present the vote of thanks on this occasion of TiECon Mysuru 2021. These past approximately 3 hours have been really captivating and enthralling for every viewer. Thanks to all the speakers who shared their perspectives and broadened our knowledge. It has been a very interesting adventure of gaining new perspectives. As entrepreneurs, this new knowledge surely will take us to greater heights. On behalf of TiE Mysuru, I'm very grateful to all the delegates who contributed to the success of today's event and sharing their graceful words with us today. I would like to give a heartfelt vote of thanks to His Highness Yaduvir Krishnadatta Chamaraja Vadeyar, who spent his busiest time gracing this occasion and inaugurating the event. Today, we had the opportunity to hear your valuable thoughts, and it definitely was a boost. Thank you, sir, for joining us today and giving a wonderful overview of entrepreneurial roots in Mysuru and about the upcoming Cybersecurity Center of Excellence coming up here. Thank you. I should mention deep appreciation for B.V. Jagadish for enlightening us with all the possible ways to explore the entrepreneurial journey. Along with the key ingredients for a startup, including people, market fit product, execution, and financial acumen, you gave us practical insights for all entrepreneurs to improve their chance to succeed with the combination of vision and execution. You are a legend, sir, and it has been a very enriching listening to you. Also, I would like to express my gratitude towards Anu Hariharan, Sham Shentar, and Rajiv Raghunandan for sharing your thoughts on incubation, acceleration, and scale. We learned different visions about the factors fund managers look at to make their decisions, including vision, ambition, product offering, and market fit. Also, I extend my sincere thanks to Sharad Joyce for giving us a new insight into the tradition of Mysuru and yoga. By walking us through the parampara of yoga and linkage to Mysuru and his own journey, becoming one of the foremost gurus of Ashtanga Yoga in the world and extending our knowledge and spreading the light of yoga. The session with Madhuchandan was refreshingly different. Thank you, sir, for inspiring us by recounting your journey from a novice in farming to a successful agribusiness entrepreneur who started a movement touching the lives of thousands of farmers for the better tomorrow. I express my wholehearted gratitude to Dr. Chaitra Harsha for her riveting story of the challenges and success of a doctor entrepreneur. An offbeat story about an MBBS doctor discarding medical practice and tried her best in human genetics, research, and designing vaccines before becoming a successful entrepreneur. I thank Team Jatre for managing all the logistic supports to make this virtual event happen. I would also like to acknowledge our gratitude to all office bearers, charter members, associate members, and student members of TiE Mysuru who generously helped us make this event come together to become a success. We couldn't have done without you. We all know how challenging it is to pull up an event like TiECon virtually. It requires critical planning and unmatched coordination. I humbly thank each one of you for always being on your toes and cooperating and coordinating so well. A huge thanks to all the viewers for being such an amazing and cooperative audience even at this hour of the day. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Sampanna. We are all enriched by each other's participation. I do hope you all have got your entrepreneurs' brains kick-started. Have a great day and productive emerging journey. I'm Dr. Lokesh signing off, and thank you very much to the team of TiECon 2021 for providing me an opportunity to be a part of this event. Thank you all for your kind cooperation and the participation. Thank you one and all. Good day. Thank you.